Chapter 309. The proud and pampered Qin Yu tidied up his things. Then he and the many participating cultivators from the inn stepped onto the street and gathered at the starting point. But what was strange was that many of the cultivators he met on the street were bruised and swollen, as if they had been brutally beaten. Could it be that some sort of mass incident occurred last night? The competition was just around the corner, and yet they were still in the mood to do such things. As expected, the cultivators of the land of divinity and demons really knew how to play. Qin Yu shook his head, no longer bothering with them. He followed the stream of people forwards, occasionally glancing around. He felt that something was missing from the crowd today. He didn't think he was wrong. He frowned and suddenly realized that there wasn't a single person wearing black robes in the crowd. This was strange. When he registered yesterday, although there weren't many people wearing black robes, there were still some. So, how come everyone had changed clothes today? There didn't seem to be such a rule in the rules of the competition. As he was thinking, Qin Yu soon arrived at the designated gathering point and waited to set off. Without delaying for too long, the cultivators of the competition began to hand out a timer. This thing was simple, and its function was exactly the same as its name. Its only use was to calculate time. This was because only cultivators that passed through the wilderness in less than a day had the qualifications to participate. Otherwise, they would all be forced out. Qin Yu received this little thing and was solemnly reminded to take good care of it. It was shaped like a small hourglass. When the departure signal was sent out, it would begin to fall down for a full day. Of course, although this thing was simple, it wasn't simple at all. In the past South Shine Nation youth alchemy competitions, there had been people that had tried to play tricks on the hourglass. But no matter how exquisite their methods were, they were easily discovered and they lost everything. That was 30,000 spirit stones as a base. If one were to think about it in the dark, perhaps the South Shine Nation officials were hoping that all the participating cultivators would play some tricks. If so, they would have struck it rich. Everyone, we will begin to enter the wilderness in an hour. If you wish to form a team, please hurry. After the officials reminded everyone, the open space outside the city immediately became chaotic. Shouts and shouts rose and fell. Brother Su, Brother Wong, hurry up. The 5 of us will form a team. A team of 4. We have both offense and defense. We are in urgent need of fellow Taoists with speed. If you join, your safety will be guaranteed. Are there any fellow Taoists with high defensive earth attribute abilities? We are waiting for you to join us. That's right. While traversing through the wilderness, one could form a team. Although the South Shine Nation officials had combed through the wilderness before the start of the competition to determine that there wouldn't be any powerful monster beasts that surpassed the limits of their resistance, this didn't mean there weren't any dangers. The purpose of the competition was to unearth talents, not to let the young cultivators of the younger generation run off to feed monster beasts. If they formed a team, it would be much safer. Of course, 5 people was the maximum number of people in a team. Otherwise, if dozens or hundreds of people walked together, the wilderness trial would not be challenging at all. It would not be able to eliminate them at all. Oh, that's right, this round is called the wilderness trial. Qin Yu was a bit hesitant. He didn't know many people, and it wasn't necessarily safe for him to form a team with others. After thinking about it for a bit, he might as well go on his own. With his current cultivation, there shouldn't be any problems. Just as he was thinking of this, he suddenly heard a cry of surprise. Big brother, it's you. Qin Yu turned and saw little Feng Feng running towards him, her face full of joy. He subconsciously frowned. When they met yesterday, he was wearing a black robe. How could this little girl recognize him? Hey, big brother, we really are brought together by fate. Yesterday, I left in a hurry and forgot to ask for your name. I was just worrying about how to return your spirit stones. As she spoke, she took out her hand phone. Come, big brother. Let's add each other's friends. I'll transfer the money to you. Qin Yu calmly took out his hand phone. As she was busying herself, he lightly asked, How did you recognize me? Isn't that simple? I just relied on my nose. Little Feng Feng had a proud expression. I'm very fierce. As long as I smell someone's aura, no matter if it's a person or an object, I can firmly remember them and never forget them. Qin Yu relaxed a little. If this was the case, then it wouldn't be much of a problem. But at this time, a cold snort sounded out. Fong Fong, don't speak so casually. Black hair, white robes, pink face, and starry eyes. If Qin Yu had to choose a ranking of the most handsome men he had ever seen in his life, this person would definitely be on it. His eyes were cold and arrogant. It was clear he came from an extraordinary background. Cousin, please be a bit more polite. This is the big brother that lent me spirit stones yesterday. If it weren't for him, I fear I wouldn't have been able to smoothly register. Little Fong Fong glared at him. Her fingers nimbly tapped the screen of her handphone a few times. She looked up and smiled. All right, 50,000 spirit stones will be transferred to your account soon. Qin Yu shook his head. I don't need that much. Little Fong Fong was full of pride. Big brother helped me out of kindness, so of course I should be rewarded. Moreover, little Fong Fong doesn't lack money. Big brother, just keep it. The handsome cousin had an ill complexion. He had already heard about what happened yesterday from little Fong Fong. He originally thought that Qin Yu was deliberately approaching them with ill intentions. But now that he saw Qin Yu receive 20,000 spirit stones out of thin air and still maintain such a calm expression, he sneered inwardly and became even more certain of his guess. This person most likely knew of his cousin's identity and was deliberately trying to approach her. This old man has seen this sort of thing many times. If he wants to ascend to the heavens in a single bound and become the son-in-law of his uncle's family, then he can keep dreaming. Fong Fong, the spirit stones have been returned. Let's go. If he didn't even give him a chance to approach her, then let's see just what sort of tricks he had up his sleeve. Qin, you could feel the hostility coming from the handsome cousin and the man and woman behind him. He could roughly guess the reason, but he didn't feel angry. He cupped his hands together and said, "Then we'll part ways here." He turned around and left without hesitation. That was true. The handsome cousin was startled. Did he think he was overthinking things? But in the next moment, his complexion darkened. He clenched his teeth for a long time and cursed inwardly. What a good cat and mouse game. He watched as his little cousin, who had been spoiled endlessly since childhood, bounced up and down as she chased after him. Big brother, are you alone? How about you form a team with us? We just happen to be missing one. Qin Yu's arm was held by her, and he had no choice but to stop. He helplessly said, "Forget it. Big brother, do you have an appointment with someone?" Little Fong Fong blinked her eyes, looking pitiful. Qin Yu felt a headache coming on. I don't. Good. Then I welcome Big brother to join us. With you here, little Fong Fong can feel at ease. Otherwise, if I were to be carried around by this idiot cousin of mine, I really would be a little scared. The handsome cousin's face darkened. He clenched his teeth and roared, "White Fong Fong, shut up." After taking several deep breaths, he sneered, "Our team is still missing an assistant wet nurse. If this fellow Taoist isn't one, then don't waste your time. Black Bebe, you're the one who should shut up. Big brother is my benefactor. If you dare to refuse him, I will run away right now and then tell my father and mother that you forced me to run away from home." Black Bebe sucked in a breath of cold air. He was shocked by this little girl's ruthlessness. For an outsider she had only met for the second time, she had actually used such a great killing weapon against him. Could it be that this little girl was thinking of love? No, absolutely no. Otherwise, his uncle wouldn't even need to do anything. His auntie would tear him apart. Don't panic, let me think things through. In this current situation, it's too early to say that she's in love with him. Perhaps she only has a favorable impression of him. If I force this boy away, I fear it will arouse my cousin's rebellious thoughts. At that time, it will be even more troublesome. I might as well bring him along with me. With this Lord Black's eyes blazing like torches, what sort of storm would this boy be able to stir up? Moreover, looking at his cultivation, he seemed to be at the third or fourth level of nascent soul at most. Once they entered the wilderness, he would find a chance to make him suffer a bit and also make a fool of himself. Then, his cousin would naturally lose interest in him. This Lord Black is truly smart. He is truly worthy of being the most respected, most likable, and most handsome man in the world. Something doesn't seem right. Lord Black thought for a moment, and then his body stiffened. He glanced behind him and saw that the delicate little sister's face had indeed stiffened. He howled inwardly. He ruthlessly glared at White Fong Fong. You damn little girl. You actually dare to call out Lord Black's name. Don't you know that this is a taboo? I will remember this debt for you. Black Bebe lightly coughed and pretended as if he didn't know anything. He said in a low voice, "Since you helped my cousin, I will allow you to join us. But the wilderness is different from other places. There can be dangers at any time, so you must be careful. If something happens, don't blame me for not warning you." Chinyu was a bit disappointed. How come it seemed like he was begging to join? It was clear that you didn't even say anything and just made the decision yourself. He wanted to politely decline, but White Fong Fong had already cheered out loud. She hugged him even tighter and pulled him forwards. "Wilderness, your big sister Fong Fong is here." A warm and soft feeling came from his arm. Chinyu never imagined that this delicate little girl would have such a body. After a brief daze, she had already brought him far away. When he regained his composure and saw her cheerful appearance, he hesitated and swallowed his words of refusal back down. Whatever, it's just a day. I'll just endure it for a bit." If Black Bebe knew what Chinyu was thinking right now, he would absolutely fly into a rage. But even if he didn't know, his complexion was still ugly. Behind him, the purple-robed man had a look of jealousy. "Brother Black, are we just going to watch as Miss White is tricked by this person? Humph, I can tell with a single glance that he isn't a good person." The little sister also wore a purple dress. Although she felt that her big brother's words weren't right and that this little brother was quite likable, thinking that this matter involved the person her big brother liked, she had to stand on the same side as him. Thus, she earnestly nodded. Hearing the words Brother Black, Black Bebe's heart twitched. A feeling of speechlessness rose up in his heart before turning into annoyance. It was all this bastard's fault. If it weren't for him, how could his cousin have flipped out like this? Moreover, she would have ignored the agreement they made in the past and revealed the name of his true self. Brother Black clenched his teeth and said, "Don't worry. Once we enter the wilderness, there will be plenty of chances to mess with him. I have to let him know that if he offends us, there will be no good ending for him." The big brother was overjoyed. "Brother Black, rest assured that I will do my best to help you so that Miss White can see this brat's true face." The little sister clenched her fists. "Big Brother Black, me too." Bibi turned and walked away. He looked up at the skies, not allowing the tears to fall down his cheeks. "Black, your sister. You're the one who's black. Your entire family is black." Chapter 310. Big Brother, I haven't asked yet. What's your name? Value, what a good name. It's very similar to Big Brother's personality. Big Brother, after the competition ends, how about you come home with me to play? My father and mother will definitely like you. Chapter 310. There were few people in the wilderness. Even after the South Shine Nation had swept through this area, most of the sunlight was blocked out by the ancient trees. It was so dark that it left one's heart filled with dread. Brother Black cautiously looked around. He couldn't help but listen to the sounds coming from behind him. Then, his lips couldn't help but twitch. Value, with such a name, didn't you have any shame? Just from this alone, one could see his despicable and shameless nature. Cousin, why are you so stubborn? Why are you calling me more and more intimately? Big Brother Value, you've never called me Big Brother Bebe before. I am your cousin, your blood cousin. Can you not hurt me like this? The purple-robed youth's complexion was as black as the bottom of a pot. He clenched his teeth from time to time. He also wanted to interrupt, but before he could say 2 words, White Fong Fong had driven him back. She told him to open the way and not disturb her conversation with Big Brother Value. His little sister had a sympathetic expression, but she couldn't do anything about this sort of thing. She could only say that her big brother's skills were inferior. Otherwise, why wouldn't Miss White stick to him? Value, I'm tired. You open the way. Bebe turned and roared. But what greeted him was an entire bottle of pills. White Fong Fong didn't even look at him. If you're tired, take 1. If you're tired, take 2. If you're tired, take 3. Don't disturb me talking to Big Brother Value. Ah, Big Brother, where were you just now? It's all because of my stupid cousin. He can't even do something as simple as opening the way, and he still wants to disturb us. Bei nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. Blue veins popped up on his forehead, and his field of vision darkened. He really wanted to shout out loud, "White Foam Foam, just who is your cousin?" But he knew that if he dared to shout out loud, the one who would lose face in the end would be him. That girl White Foam Foam had bullied him since he was a child. Up until today, he hadn't been able to take advantage of her at all. The purple-robed youth glared at Brother Black, his meaning clear. Was this what he meant when he said that after entering the wilderness, there would be ways to punish him? Bei's face flushed red. He drily coughed and hurried along, occasionally tearing apart the thorns and trees. From his hateful appearance, it was likely he thought they were Chinyu. That's right, this trip into the wilderness was because of White Fengfeng's favor and closeness. To Chinyu, it was like a spring outing. Black Bei was quite strong. He had a 7th-level nascent soul cultivation, and from the way he attacked, it was clear he was holding back a great deal. Of the purple siblings, the big brother's defensive capabilities were astonishing, and the little sister was skilled in wood magic. The two of them cooperated much more easily than Black Bei. Even if they encountered several monster beasts that didn't open their eyes, the three of them could easily take them down. Let alone Chinyu. He didn't even need to glance at them. The only thing that gave him a headache was that this girl, White Fengfeng's questions were endless, and they were developing in an increasingly strange direction. Just as Chinyu felt that he couldn't persist any longer, a small change quietly occurred in this comfortable situation. The number of demonic beasts attacking the team of 5 seemed to be increasing. It was not a sudden increase. Instead, it maintained a certain range and increased bit by bit. Bei was depressed. The purple-robed elder brother was gnashing his teeth, and the purple-robed younger sister was only concerned with lamenting for her brother. The three of them didn't seem to notice anything amiss. Chinyu frowned, interrupting White Fengfeng's rambling. "Don't you think that the number of demonic beasts we'll encounter has increased?" White Fengfeng wasn't dissatisfied with Chinyu interrupting her. She had an expression that said, "Big brother Baoyu, you're so observant. I really admire you." Really? Bei's lips twitched. He thought, "You silly girl, you didn't even look at him the entire way here, so what the hell do you know? You're just trying to curry favor with this bastard. What's so good about him? He's far too lacking compared to me, like the distance between a star and the sun." As he thought of this, anger began to tumble within him. He tossed aside his original surprise and dissatisfaction towards Chinyu. He sneered and said, "What? Are you afraid, Baoyu? The demonic beasts in this area have already been cleaned up by the South Shine Nation's masters. If you still feel fear in this situation, then I can only express my surprise at your courage." The purple-robed big brother's surname was Jiang Wuhai. At this time, his spirits rose. It was finally time for him to counterattack. He pretended to be indifferent as he said, "When I was 12 years old, I followed my father and brother into the wilderness to adventure. By the time I was 16 years old, I had already completed 3 journeys alone." He swept his eyes around. "Fellow Taoist Baoyu, you still need to temper yourself." Jiang Ziyuan's eyes brightened. She looked at her big brother with worship. In her heart, her big brother had always been the most outstanding person. Now, her big brother had finally found a chance to reveal himself in front of Miss White. He would definitely be able to reverse the situation and make Miss White's impression of him completely surpass Baoyu's. But White Fengfeng's following words caused Jiang Ziyuan to stumble. Even though she had the temperament of a noble young lady, she actually wanted to curse out loud. "Oh, then it really is a miracle that you've lived until now. Or, where your family comes from, the demonic beasts are all vegetarians." This wasn't the most infuriating part. The key point was that after she finished speaking, she turned to Chinyu with a longing expression. "Big brother Baoyu, do you also think that Fengfeng is right?" Jiang Wuhai's eyes nearly turned red. He stubbornly glared at Chinyu, his expression saying that if Chinyu dared to say even half a word more, he would immediately go all out against him. He wasn't afraid, but it was best not to provoke trouble, especially this sort of inexplicable trouble. Chinyu humphed, indicating that he had no opinion on this. White Fengfeng proudly looked up. "I knew that to Big Brother Baoyu. These things aren't worth mentioning at all." You don't even have the spirit to comment on them. There's no need to say anything else. Feng Feng understands. You're what my father once said, someone who is extremely skilled and also extremely low-key. You aren't like some people who keep saying how fierce they are. Shallow, shallow to the extreme. Whoosh, a slender golden-patterned leopard fiercely pounced forwards. It opened its mouth, revealing fangs that shined with a cold light. Jiang Wuhai shouted out loud and punched at the leopard's mouth. With a loud, crackling sound, the golden-patterned leopard's fangs broke at the root. It was sent flying through the air, blood raining down from the sky. It fell to the ground with a mournful cry, gasping for air. It didn't seem like it would survive for much longer. Jiang Wuhai drew back his fist. The skin of his palm had turned into a faint layer of gold. There were several shallow white marks on it, but it hadn't even broken through his skin. This mortal body could be called powerful. After punching out, perhaps because he had vented out some of the pent-up anger in his heart, Jiang Wuhai's complexion became much calmer. He shook off the beads of blood on his arm, causing the surrounding trees to rustle. The wind swirled around his purple robes. Beneath the dim light, his tall and straight back was like a mountain, giving off an incomparably peaceful feeling. Jiang Ziyuan's fingers moved. As she stimulated the wind to act as a foil, she looked at her big brother with worship. Miss White, just look, what a reliable and handsome little fellow you are. How could sweet words and sweet nothings compare to this? Open your eyes wide and see just who is your best choice. Black Bebe was a bit surprised. This Jiang family boy's mortal body cultivation was far stronger than he had imagined. It had actually reached the golden skin level. No wonder he dared to have thoughts about little Feng Feng. Disregarding everything else, just with his superhuman bodily defense, he wouldn't be easily beaten to death when he was with little Feng Feng in the future. Just this point alone might cause his uncle and aunt to look at him in a higher light. After all, if he had to interact with little Feng Feng, the pressure of survival would be great. The Jiang family brother and sister's fantasies were beautiful, but reality immediately taught them a cruel lesson. The schoolmate White Feng Feng's eyes widened and her mouth fell open. Just as Jiang Wuhai revealed a smile, she seemed to discover something very surprising. She grabbed onto Qin Yu's hand and shouted, "Big brother Bao Yu, look, there's actually someone so stupid. He can casually take out a magic tool from his storage ring and send that golden-patterned leopard away. But he's actually using his fist to fight it. Isn't he afraid that his hand will be bitten off? Indeed, what my mother said was right. A man that is born too beautiful has a bad brain. I thought that only my cousin was like this, but I never thought I would meet another one today." Jiang Wuhai's smile froze on his face, and his body shivered. At this moment, Qin Yu could clearly see what heartbreak was in his eyes. Even if he didn't have a good impression of Jiang Wuhai, he still couldn't help but feel some sympathy for him. Jiang Ziyuan wanted to say something, but was pulled back by Jiang Wuhai. Her face scrunched up, filled with anger and grievance. But she also knew that White Feng Feng's background wasn't something that their Jiang family could provoke. Black Bebe patted Jiang Wuhai's shoulder, a look of pity in his eyes. "It's not that I don't want to give you a chance, but that you can't even pass the first test of this little grandaunt. It's best if you give up on me. Let's hurry." White Feng Feng was confused. Why was everyone suddenly silent? Did she say something that she shouldn't have said? Thinking about it carefully, she didn't. Facing her questioning eyes, Qin Yu nearly choked on his own spit. He coughed several times and waved his hand, indicating that she didn't want to ask him anything and that he didn't know anything. But soon, a dignified expression appeared on his face. This was because the number of monster beasts they encountered had increased. Of course, because the angry Jiang family siblings were here, these monster beasts that jumped out were easily sent back to their homes to be eaten. Thus, it didn't seem too difficult. Even Black Bebe seemed a bit leisurely. He placed his hands in his pockets, a relaxed expression on his face. Qin Yu thought for a moment and decided not to speak further. After all, the monster beasts here had already been cleaned up by the South Shine Nation officials. With the strength they displayed, there shouldn't be any problems. As night fell, Black Bebe announced that they would rest for the time being. He took out a map and looked at it. They had already traversed more than half the distance. If everything went smoothly, they would arrive at the Marshall Field tomorrow morning. There was still plenty of time. Chinyu sat down cross-legged. Little Fong Fong was sitting beside him. This little girl was tricky to others and her mouth was fierce, but it was unknown why she was so cautious around Chinyu. When he closed his eyes and meditated, little Fong Fong was very well behaved. She sat there without moving. As Black Bebe saw this from the corner of his eyes, he sighed inwardly. Indeed, everything had its nemesis. Even someone as monstrous as White Fong Fong would be restrained by others one day. Of course, this wouldn't change his attitude towards Chinyu. How could an ordinary boy like him have the qualifications to enter the eyes of his aunt and uncle? Hee, you brat. You had best have no intentions towards White Fong Fong, otherwise you'll suffer in the future. The Jiang family siblings were a bit further away. Although the 5 of them were still in a team, it was clear that after White Feng Feng's poisonous tongue, they couldn't help but feel some ill feelings towards her. Chapter 3:11. This shout alarmed Black Bebe and the Jiang family siblings. The 3 of them were incomparably vigilant, but as they looked around and didn't discover anything wrong, their complexions darkened. Brat, are you playing with us? Black Bebe's eyes were filled with ill intent. White Fong Fong sneered. Black Bebe, if you dare to speak like that again, do you believe I won't tell my mother that you are plotting against me? Ga. Black Bebe's face stiffened, as if someone were grabbing his neck. He couldn't say a single word. That damn brat. She couldn't even say a single word before using such a powerful move. White Fong Fong proudly puffed out her chest. Just as she was about to say something, she was suddenly hugged by Chinyu and leapt backwards. At this moment, everyone's thoughts were like this. White Fong Fong, what does Big Brother Bao you want to do to me? If he really does that, what should I do? Should I not do anything and just obey him? Will he think I'm not reserved enough? Moreover, I heard that the first time is very painful. If I take a pain-relieving pill ahead of time, he won't laugh at me, right? Black Bebe, you bastard, where did your courage come from? You actually dare to hug my family's little princess in front of me? If you don't want to live, then don't drag me down with you. Jiang Wu Hai, Dog Bao Yu, your true face has finally been exposed. Ha ha, my chance to shine has finally arrived. Miss White, wait for me to save you. Jiang Xin, this person is quite pleasing to the eye, but I never thought he would have such a bad temper. He's so rude and unreasonable, but it's really exciting. Of course, their thoughts were all wrong, because in the next moment, the ground where White Fong Fong was suddenly shattered, and over a dozen black-scaled snakes burst out. If Chinyu's reaction had been a step slower, White Fong Fong would have already been bitten by these snakes. Undying demon snake. Black Bebe cried out. He raised his hand and threw out a bag of powder. It was unknown where he had taken it out, but it exploded in the air, scattering everywhere. Hurry up and run. Don't just stand there and wait to die. He rushed over to grab White Fong Fong, but was mercilessly rejected. The little girl tightly hugged Chinyu, a look of disdain on her face, as if to say that she would have died a long time ago. Black Bebe's lips twitched, but he had nothing to say. He couldn't help but admit that he had to thank Chinyu. Otherwise, if something really happened to his cousin, he would have died miserably. Chinyu's complexion was heavy. Without a single word, he stomped his feet and shot forwards. The undying demon snake. This was the second time he had seen it. Back then, there was only one, and it was enough to put him in a difficult situation. Today, there were more than a dozen of them. Even though he now had combat strength comparable to a divine soul, and his strength had risen several times over, he still felt his scalp tingle. Black Bebe's eyes widened. He didn't think that even though this boy's cultivation wasn't too high, he would still be able to run so fast. He didn't have time to think about it, and quickly followed after him. The group of 5 rapidly fled, the angry hisses of the undying demon snakes echoing behind them. But they clearly had some misgivings about the powder that Black Bebe had sprinkled out and didn't chase after them. Unfortunately, the 5 of them were unlucky. Before they could get far, they saw 5 mountain wolves with glistening fur. Their green eyes flashed with a heart-palpitating cruelty in the dark night. Roar! 5 mountain wolves pounced at him. Black Bebe shouted out, "Kill them! Finish them as soon as possible!" He lifted a hand and punched out, instantly erupting with a combat strength that surpassed the strength of 1,000 horses. A mountain wolf across from him was broken in half by this punch, but its powerful vitality allowed it to fall to the ground and struggle to continue attacking. The Zhang family brother and sister were well aware that 5 mountain wolves weren't anything at all. What was truly terrifying were the several dozen undying demon snakes behind them. Without hesitation, they erupted with their strongest combat strength. Jiang Wuhai stood at the front like a mountain, blocking all the attacks. As Jiang Zhen waved her palms, a large expanse of green divine light gushed out, and thick vines rushed over, coiling around the mountain wolves. Sharp thorns grew out of the vines and pierced into their bodies. And at this time, Black Bebe had already killed the second mountain wolf. The remaining 3 were howling in pain between the vines. The 3 of them joined forces, easily breaking through the road ahead. But at this time, the undying demon snakes had already caught up. Their hissing filled the ears, causing one's scalp to tingle. Black Bebe turned around, a pained expression on his face. He flipped his hand and took out a lantern. The flames on his fingernails danced in the dark night, seeming as if they would extinguish at any moment. With a flick of his sleeve, the palace lantern was thrown backwards. The lantern was covered in cracks amidst the cracking sounds, and then it suddenly exploded. Between the heavens and earth, endless spiritual strength seemed to be summoned. It crazily surged towards the exposed flame, forming a giant vortex. The flame was like a black hole, crazily swallowing the spiritual strength of the heavens and earth. It rapidly expanded until it turned into a figure of fire. Its face was blurry and it couldn't be seen clearly. But this figure emitted a heaven-shaking annihilation aura. The flame figure lifted its hands, and the annihilation aura became even richer. Black Bebe turned and raced away. Hurry and run. Without needing him to say anything, Qin Yu's pupils shrank. The moment the flame figure lifted its hands, he grabbed White Feng and ran far away. Several breaths of time later, there was a loud explosion from behind him. Then there was a raging shockwave. For several miles, everything was flattened and erased like sand. Qin Yu stuffily coughed. His body sank down as if he were carrying an entire mountain on his back. He took advantage of the momentum and rolled away, withstanding most of the impact. Black Bebe was distressed. He crawled up from the ground, gnashing his teeth as he roared. The South Shine Nation officials, those damned idiots. There were over a dozen undying demon snakes, and they didn't even discover us. Jiang Wuhai and Jiang Zhen were also pale, a lingering fear in their hearts. Luckily, Brother Black had a great killing summoning tool in his hands that was able to refine and kill off all the undying demon snakes. Otherwise, even if they weren't weak, it would have been hard for them to escape death. This sort of great killing summoning tool was extremely difficult to create, and each one was incomparably precious. For them to use it here for no reason at all, it was no wonder that Brother Black was so enraged. Such a terrifying aura spread through the dark night, enough to frighten away all monster beasts that had opened their spiritual wisdom. But things didn't progress like this. Qin Yu grabbed on a White Feng and said, "We're in trouble." In the darkness of the night, a terrifying aura was still reverberating in the air. Cold, cruel eyes slowly appeared in the surrounding darkness. There were so many of them that there were probably hundreds of them. Among them, there were a few particularly large black shadows that emitted a heart-palpitating aura. In such a situation, there was no chance to escape even if they wanted to. Black Bebe sucked in a breath of cold air. His handsome face couldn't help but twitch. Damn it, just what is going on? Where did so many monster beasts come from? Now wasn't the time to worry about face. Black Bebe took out his hand phone, a stunned expression on his face. No signal. There's actually no signal. Fuck, are you kidding me? You're a satellite hand phone Big brother. He shook it several times and determined that it didn't work. Then, his eyes narrowed and his complexion became even uglier. It was impossible for the Southshine Nation to be lazing around while sweeping through the wilderness. If so, then the massive number of monster beasts that appeared was extremely suspicious. Moreover, the satellite handphone actually didn't have the least bit of signal. Unless his luck was so bad that he stepped into a chaotic magnetic field, there was only one possibility. Someone had secretly tampered with it. Everyone, check your bodies. Do you have anything on you? Chinyu naturally didn't have any problems. The Jiang family siblings also didn't discover anything on their bodies. Black Bebe's complexion turned ugly. I don't have anything on me either. Everyone's eyes fell on White Feng Feng. This girl's eyes widened. What are you looking at? Do you think someone as smart as me would be schemed against by others? I don't have anything on me. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He lifted a hand and pointed at an exquisite gemstone phoenix hairpin on her head. You didn't seem to have this yesterday. Black Bebe's expression turned cold. Cousin, where did you get this from? White Feng Feng hesitated. Yesterday on the side of the road, I saw that it was very beautiful and I liked it, so I bought it. But I don't know the person who sold it to me. He wouldn't harm me, right? Give it to me. Black Bebe received the phoenix hairpin and carefully looked at it. Then he used some strength in his fingers and crushed the largest gemstone. A light fishy smell immediately wafted out. Ah! White Feng Feng cried out in alarm. Black Bebe sniffed twice, and his complexion became even uglier. Mystic Beast Fodder Medicine. Jiang Wuhai and Jiang Ziyuan's pupils shrank, shock filling their faces. Brother Black, are you sure you saw correctly? How could they dare? Black Bebe clenched his teeth. How could I not recognize Cleansing Temple's Mystic Beast Fodder Medicine? I never thought they would play such a big game. It seems I've underestimated them in the past. He looked up, his eyes faintly red. Cousin, let's ask for help. Even if we cannot escape death today, we must send news back so that my family, uncle, and auntie can take revenge for us. White Feng Feng paled. This little girl had been arrogant and willful since she was a child, resulting in her current temperament. She had never experienced any dangers, much less a life or death calamity. However, due to her status and the upbringing she received since she was a child, she barely managed to maintain her calm. She took out a jade ring from her storage ring that was engraved with countless tiny lines and threw it to the ground. Pa! The ring shattered and a golden curtain of light appeared, covering White Feng Feng within. At the same time, a blood-red light shot into the skies with a shrill cry, vanishing from sight in the blink of an eye. Black Bebe squeezed out a smile. I forgot that this treasure that auntie gave you has extremely powerful defensive abilities. Then, cousin can rest assured. Feng Feng, you stay inside. No matter what happens, you are not allowed to come out. Perhaps it can protect you until auntie comes to rescue you. He turned around, his expression heavy. He cupped his hands together and said, without accident, the three of you have been implicated by me and my cousin. If you don't die today, I will make sure to compensate you. Now, I ask that the three of you temporarily put down your grudges and join forces with me. Perhaps we might be able to carve out a path to survival. This fellow, in this life or death crisis, was truly impressive. At the very least, his calm composure was admirable. The Jiang family siblings took a deep breath and slowly nodded. It was impossible to say that they didn't have any resentment in their hearts. But with things having come to this point, it was useless to say anything. They could only grit their teeth and risk their lives. White Feng Feng hid in the golden curtain of light. She suddenly screamed, "No, I cannot let you die." She bit down on her fingertip and touched the golden curtain of light. It was unknown what happened, but her complexion rapidly paled. The golden curtain of light suddenly expanded, covering all five of them. Black Bebe was enraged. White Feng Feng, stop. God's blessing might be able to protect you alone, but if it includes all of us, we won't be able to survive. He lifted a hand and pointed. Look clearly, there are several hundred monster beasts outside. You can't protect everyone. Hurry up and take back the protection of God. White foam, bitter lips. I won't. Stay with me. Father and mother love me the most. Once they receive the news, they will hurry over. Chapter 312. Before White Feng's smile could fade, she was knocked unconscious by a palm strike. Black Bebe bit his fingertip and controlled the protection of God to shrink until it covered her body. Then, he carefully placed her on the ground. He stood up and looked around. I know that my actions will cause the three of you to be dissatisfied, but my cousin's status is not something that you or I can compare with. If she dies, no matter what the reason is, you and I can only be buried with her. And as long as she lives, even if we die today, we can still take revenge. Black Bebe fell silent. He swept his eyes over the approaching monster beasts and bitterly smiled. In truth, I also don't want to die, but today is just... He shook his head. He placed the mystic beast fodder medicine on White Feng's body. This was the most direct evidence, so he naturally had to keep it. He took a deep breath and said, "Everyone, let's fight to the death." The many monster beasts that had been attracted by the mystic beast fodder medicine didn't immediately attack because they were afraid of each other. But when Black Bebe placed the mystic beast fodder medicine into the protection of God enchantment and isolated its aura, the monster beasts immediately began to riot. Low and deep roars filled the air, their brutality soaring into the heavens. The Jiang family brother and sister had bleak complexions. They knew it would be impossible for them to survive today, but it was impossible for them to force Black Bebe to use the protection of God to protect them. Otherwise, the entire Jiang family would have to withstand the terrifying suppression of the Great Desolate's White family. It seemed that their only choice was to risk their lives in a desperate battle and fight for that slim chance of survival. The three of them revealed bitter expressions. Their eyes filled with despair and then gradually turned to madness. Since they were doomed to die, then they would do their best to drag these monster beasts down with them to the Yellow Springs. Between life and death, one would reveal their weakness and fear. To continue living was the strongest instinct and will of any living being. Thus, whether it was Black Bebe or White Feng, the qualities they displayed left Qin Yu in awe. This was because he didn't know whether or not he would be able to do the same if he were in a similar situation. As for the Jiang family brother and sister, they were extremely intelligent people. Even though they knew they were about to die, they still maintained their rationality and the overall situation. Even if they held grudges in their hearts, it was still commendable. These four people were all so outstanding. If they died here, that would be too much of a pity. Qin Yu turned his head and glanced at the unconscious White Feng. As he thought about how this girl had subconsciously wanted to save everyone just now, he smiled. He stepped forwards, his voice calm. "All of you stay here and guard White Feng." Black Bebe and the Jiang family siblings were startled. Before they could understand the meaning of these words, their mouths fell open in the next moment, incomparably shocked expressions on their faces. Bang! With a dull thumping sound, the ground suddenly exploded. Cracks spread out all around the crater. Qin Yu's figure was like a bolt of lightning as he bolted into the rampaging monster beast horde. He raised his hand, and divine light erupted from his fingers. 5 swords of the 5 elements appeared, spinning around the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to form a dazzling vortex. Bang! Blood-red flames drilled out from Qin Yu's body, blazing around him. His speed instantly rose by 10 times, and he turned into a bolt of blood-red lightning that shuttled through the monster beasts. The great black bear of Crow Plains, with its thick hide and astonishing defense, was sent flying. A horrifying wound tore open on its chest, and blood spurted out. It fell to the ground and twitched a few times. It had been killed in an instant. On the other side was a wild ape that tried to launch a sneak attack. It wielded a huge black staff, and as it slammed it down, the air exploded and the ground quaked. A huge crater opened up, and several of the weaker demon beasts were killed on the spot. But the wild ape's target wasn't here. It vigilantly leapt backwards. In the next moment, a bolt of blood-red lightning shot out, and its giant head shot into the skies. The eight-legged black-furred spider screeched like invisible nails that ruthlessly pierced into its brain. At the same time, it spat out a massive amount of pale yellow venom from its poison sac. Several mountain wolves were accidentally contaminated by the venom. They howled in pain as they fell to the ground. As they struggled, their fur began to lose its luster at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, their flesh and blood began to rot, turning into pus that flowed to the ground and corroded it. Countless black holes appeared in the ground. But in the next moment, this terrifying night demon spider froze in place. Its abdomen had been split open, and all sorts of organs mixed with undigested food fell to the ground. Several hundred monster beasts, some of them powerful existences with combat strength at the Divine Soul realm, were unable to resist the blood-red lightning at all. As the monster beasts howled in pain, fear began to grow within them. The greed and desire in their hearts seemed to be poured over them by a bucket of cold water. There were already some weak monster beasts that fled the battlefield and retreated into the distance. They wanted to leave, but they couldn't help but look towards where White Fong Fong was. Although that smell had already vanished, they knew that it was still there. They hesitated, unwilling to leave. Bang! He lifted a hand and cut down a monster beast that was shaped like a giant crocodile. Then he drew back. His face was covered in blood-red flames, but at this time, it was pale white. He activated the blood escape art and erupted with his complete cultivation. For a short period of time, he could erupt with an astonishing combat strength. But the consumption of energy was similarly astonishing. Massive swathes of the ground collapsed. Cracks crisscrossed the ground, and monster beast corpses fell to the ground. Blood flowed out, pooling into the ground. This scene was like an Azura hell, filled with monstrous killing intent. The monster beast horde had already dispersed. Most of them were watching the situation from afar. Only 5 monster beasts remained here, their cruel eyes locked on Chinyu, their chilling, intent cold. At this time, those that could still maintain their courage and fighting spirit were naturally powerhouses amongst monster beasts. The 5 monster beasts in front of them all had strength comparable to Divine Soul. Even if they were only at the early Divine Soul realm, their strength was still terrifying. Chinyu's black robes were torn apart. If it weren't for the powerful defensive capabilities of the demon god armor, his entire shoulder would have been smashed to pieces. And the one who did this was one of the apes. It was a giant ape that was 30 feet tall. There was a vertical line of blood between its eyebrows that distinguished it from the wild apes of the vast expanse. Its eyes flashed with the light of wisdom, and from time to time, it would flash with a cunning and cruel light. Suddenly, the ape reared its head back and roared. It pounded its chest with both hands, creating loud, thumping sounds that reverberated in the air. The surrounding 4 monster beasts revealed hesitation. But as the ape roared again, awe filled their eyes, and they all roared in unison. Chinyu's pupils shrank. Be careful. That is the blood eye-beheading ape. It wants to borrow the strength of the 4 monster beasts to activate its life's supernatural ability, the beheading blood light. Do not let it hit you. Black Bebe loudly warned, his complexion incomparably tense. At this time, the 4 monster beasts had already approached the ape. They roared out loud, and billowing monster energy erupted from their bodies. The ape roared, and a suction force spread out from its body, sucking in all of the monster energy. Then, the blood-red line between its eyebrows slowly opened, scarlet red, as if a 10,000-mile sea of blood had opened up. An endless aura of slaughter and annihilation erupted from within. The 4 monster beasts shivered, fear in their eyes. It was clear they dreaded this ape's life's supernatural ability. The ape's eyes locked on Chinyu. It bared its fangs and sneered. Then, a blood-red light burst out from its blood-red eyes. Its speed was faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived in front of Chinyu. Black Bebe roared out in unwillingness. He was originally shocked that he had misjudged Chinyu, but he immediately thought that the stronger Chinyu was, the more likely they would survive. But just as he saw a glimmer of light, this hope of survival was mercilessly crushed to pieces. The blood-eye beheading ape had a divine soul realm cultivation upon reaching adulthood. In particular, it had an innate blood-red eye between its eyebrows that contained a transcendent might. In the rumors, it was said that it even contained the power of laws. Once struck, even a divine soul realm master would instantly perish. Although Chinyu had displayed an extremely powerful combat strength, facing the beheading bloodlight, he still didn't have any chance of survival. Moreover, beneath the beheading bloodlight, even the protection of God wouldn't be able to protect White Feng Feng. Black Bebe clenched his fists, his nails sinking into his flesh and blood dripping down his palms. But at this time, Chinyu suddenly moved. Of course, this wasn't quite right, because when the blood-red eye between the demon ape's eyebrows was about to open, Chinyu had already moved. It was just that Black Bebe and the others were completely drawn in by the beheading bloodlight, so they didn't notice this. Thus, it gave the illusion that Chinyu had suddenly lifted his hand and then pointed out a finger just as the beheading bloodlight was about to fall. Deep in Black Bebe's eyes, a brilliant light erupted, but in the blink of an eye, it vanished. Although fellow Taoist Baoyu's reaction was fast, beneath the beheading bloodlight, all supernatural abilities and techniques were meaningless. The only exception was if one could surpass a certain limit and reach the boundary of controlling the rules. But how was that possible? Controlling the rules was a boundary that only Blue Sea Realm Supreme Elders could touch upon. Even if fellow Taoist Baoyu had heaven-shaking methods, it was impossible for him to accomplish this. A finger fell, nearly touching the beheading bloodlight. Even so, he could still feel the extreme coldness transmitted out from the bloodlight that penetrated deep into his soul. The blood drained from his face and his body stiffened, as if he had fallen into an icy lake. In the next moment, strong winds rose up in the void. With a loud rumble, it was impossible to see what was happening above. But as the boundless strength fell down, one could still feel the terrifying strength contained within. Thus, the air instantly froze, trapping the beheading bloodlight within. The phantom of a finger appeared from Chinyu's fingertip and touched the frozen air. Kacha! The frozen air shattered. The beheading bloodlight trapped within also shattered into countless pieces, tumbling about and dissipating. The sneer on the blood-eye beheading ape's face froze. Its eyes widened with disbelief, and then in the next moment, they turned into endless fear. Roar! It roared in pain. The blood-red eye between its eyebrows seemed to be pierced by an invisible arrow. Blood flowed out, and its massive body staggered before it fell to the ground dead. The backlash from its life's supernatural ability, the beheading bloodlight, had actually taken the life of the blood-eye beheading ape. The other four monster beasts that had stimulated their monster energy to activate their blood-eyed eyes also roared out loud, beads of blood seeping out from their eyes. With the blood-eye beheading ape in front of them, the majority of the backlash was offset, so their injuries weren't too serious. But the strength that Chinyu had displayed had truly frightened them. The beheading bloodlight was the beheading bloodlight that could easily kill a divine soul cultivator. But it had been broken by a single finger and even caused a terrifying backlash. In their eyes, Chinyu had become the incarnation of the most terrifying existence in the world. Just a single glance was enough to easily kill them. How could they care about the mystic beast fodder medicine? It was already good enough that they could keep their lives. The four divine soul monster beasts cried out in pain and turned to flee, panicked like stray dogs. They didn't have any of their previous momentum. In the surrounding area, the monster beasts that were still waiting for a chance to leave were stunned. Then, their chrysanthemums tightened, and they turned to flee with their tails between their legs. What nonsense! 5 divine soul bosses had joined forces, and even one of them had been easily killed. If they continued to stay, what difference was there from sending themselves to their deaths? Chapter 313. Like this, it ended? Black Bebe blinked his eyes again and again. He finally determined that he wasn't dreaming. He took a deep breath and looked at Chinyu's back on his eyes. To be able to destroy the beheading bloodlight and even cause a backlash, that common-looking finger just now contained a monstrous might. He couldn't help but think about it. But no matter what the truth was, there was one thing he could be sure of. This fellow Taoist Baoyu was unfathomably deep and had an incomparably terrifying background. It was impossible for such an existence to have any improper thoughts towards White Feng Feng. It could be seen that he had been completely wrong from the start. Thinking back to all the taunts and naked hostility he had received, Black Bebe broke out in a cold sweat. He hurriedly bowed. Junior Black Bebe of the Great Desolate Lake greets Senior Baoyu. I didn't know senior status before, so I ask that senior forgive me for offending you. Jiang Wuhai and Jiang Ziyuan paled in fright. They hurriedly bowed as well. The background of the Great Desolate Lake might be useful, but their Jiang family might not have the face to do so. That figure didn't respond. He only quietly stood there, as if he were standing at the center of the world. An invisible pressure spread out like a tide, completely submerging Black Bebe and the others. The fear in their hearts deepened and a cold sweat soaked through their robes. But they didn't dare to move at all. The air was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. This is bad, this is bad. Senior must have some complaints. If it were them and they were offended by several juniors, they would likely be angry. If Senior Baoyu hadn't revealed his cultivation, then that would be fine. But now that he had displayed such heaven-shaking might, he naturally had to protect the dignity of a powerhouse. Perhaps they would suffer a bit today. Luckily, since Senior Baoyu had saved them, he shouldn't make things too difficult for them. But even though they thought this, the three of them were still like ants on a hot pan, anxious to the extreme. Time slowly passed. As Black Bebe and the Jiang family siblings were losing hope, they finally heard a long exhale in their ears. This sound broke through the deathly stillness of the world, pulling the three of them back from the brink of collapse. They gasped for breath, the fear in their eyes even deeper. Senior Baoyu was truly formidable. Just as silence had caused them to experience a great life or death calamity. I only hope that Senior can be magnanimous and not punish me too heavily. On the other side, a trace of red finally appeared on Qin Yu's pale face. The aura of the beheading bloodlight that invaded his body slowly dissipated and he regained control of his body. The power of the blood ape's innate divine ability was so terrifying. Just a bit of its aura was already so terrifying. Luckily, for some unknown reason, the boundless blue finger had awakened in the sea region. It possessed an extremely terrifying characteristic that could destroy any supernatural ability of his opponent. Otherwise, with Qin Yu's current strength, it would have been impossible for him to resist the beheading bloodlight. This special characteristic of the boundless blue finger could be described as perishing together with the enemy. Of course, this perishing together with the enemy definitely had some sort of limit. When the opponent's strength exceeded this limit, the special characteristic of the boundless blue finger would be broken. However, even something as terrifying as the Tao-severing divine light could destroy it. It seemed that the limits of the boundless blue finger were far higher than what Qin Yu expected. In the past, when he was lying on the blue rock, he had obtained the demon blood and formed the demon body. He had also obtained the inheritance of the boundless blue three fingers. Now, the boundless blue finger had revealed a strength that far surpassed its original strength. Then, could the second blue spirit finger also contain a formidable strength that Qin Yu had never touched upon? Even to this day, Qin Yu didn't have the qualifications to control the third blue sea finger. It seemed that he had underestimated the power of the three blue fingers. Perhaps in the future, it would become an extremely fierce trump card in his hands. Qin Yu took a deep breath and suppressed these thoughts. He turned around, and what he saw was an extremely respectful group of three people filled with anxiety and trepidation. What he didn't know was that after he regained his ability to move, He had brought a great deal of torment to these three people. If it weren't for them forcefully enduring it, they would have already started crying. "You all." Black Bebe fell to his knees, a pained expression on his face. This junior had eyes but failed to see. "I didn't know Senior Baoyu's true appearance. If you want to beat me or kill me, then Senior can do as you please. I won't dare to utter a single word of complaint." There was nothing he could do. He had just said that he was someone from the great desolate lake. It was clear that to Senior Baoyu, this wasn't any pressure at all. In fact, he might even be dissatisfied. Otherwise, why would Senior Baoyu disregard his status and torment them like this? Since this road couldn't be taken, then all that was left was to lower himself and admit his wrongs on his own initiative. He hoped that this would appease Senior Baoyu's anger. Of course, the remorseful Brother Black had already prayed to all the gods and Buddhas in his heart, hoping that they would bless him and allow him to escape this calamity. "Senior Baoyu, this junior was only joking around. Please don't take it so seriously." The Jiang family brother and sister's hearts shook. From Black Bebe's actions, they thoroughly understood just how fierce this Senior Baoyu was. This was the great desolate lake. If he didn't give them any face at all, then they certainly didn't have the qualifications to care about face. The brother and sister quickly fell to their knees, begging for mercy in fear and trepidation. "Senior, please don't lower yourself to the level of juniors like us." Chinyu frowned. His thoughts raced as he thought of the same reason. It seemed that they had been frightened by the fact that he had destroyed the beheading bloodlight and killed the blood-eye beheading ape. But this was also good. Chinyu lightly said, "I hope that you won't casually leak out what happened today." Black Bebe was overjoyed. Did this mean that he didn't plan on punishing them anymore? "Senior, rest assured that the three of us will absolutely not tell anyone about what happened today." As he spoke, he quickly winked at the Jiang family brother and sister. Idiots if they didn't hurry up and climb up. Then if Senior Baoyu changed his mind, they wouldn't even have a place to cry. "Junior and Junior swear that if we reveal anything that involves Senior, we will suffer the suffering of the 3 calamities and 10 tribulations and fall into samsara for all eternity." Chinyu's lips curved up in a faint smile. Seeing these 3 fellows being so honest at this time, he was a bit pleased. Since he had frightened them and they didn't dare to speak too much, then it was time to leave. Otherwise, who knew when they would see through the truth and there would be more complications? The danger should have passed. You can walk the rest of the road by yourselves. Chinyu turned and left. With several flickers, he vanished from sight. His voice echoed out from afar. "Remember what you promised me. Farewell, Senior Baoyu." Black Bebe and the other 2 let out long breaths of relief. They slowly stood up and glanced at each other. They could all see the joy in each other's hearts. Luckily, Senior Baoyu didn't bother arguing with them. Otherwise, if they wanted to pass today, they would have to shed off several layers of skin. "Brother Jiang, Miss Jiang, you have all heard Senior Baoyu's words. I will remind you once more that you cannot rely on any luck, otherwise a great calamity will befall you in the future." The Jiang family brother and sister's hearts shook. As they saw the deep meaning in his eyes, they quickly nodded. Black Bebe picked up White Feng Feng. As he looked at her unconscious appearance, he couldn't help but ruefully smile. Indeed, what his aunt said was right. No matter how good his talent was, he still couldn't compare to Feng Feng. This girl's luck was simply heaven-defying. She was actually able to casually grab onto a fierce existence like Senior Baoyu. Fortunately, this was the case. Otherwise, they would have already become food in the bellies of monster beasts. "Let's go." Not long after the 3 of them left, Chinyu's figure appeared in the darkness of night, a self-deprecating smile on his face. Indeed, acting all high and mighty is a waste of time. I almost forgot about this. He quickly searched through the monster beast corpses. Soon, his eyes brightened. With a flick of his sleeves, the 5-element metal magic sword appeared and drilled into the monster beast's mouth. With a loud, crackling sound, the magic sword flew out with over 100 teeth wrapped around it. Chinyu lifted a hand, and a ball of water condensed in the void. He cleaned all the monster beast's teeth and carefully placed them in his storage ring. After a while, he found another monster beast corpse that could be refined into Stormflow. But this time, what he could use were its bones. The metal magic sword transformed, becoming a butcher's helper. Poochie, poochie, poochie. The sound of flesh being cut was mixed with the sound of blood splashing. The number of bones was far greater than the number of teeth. After successfully refining it, the might of Stormflow could be imagined. As Chinyu cleaned the bones, he chuckled. Moments later, after searching through all the corpses, there was only the blood eye-beheading ape left. As a divine soul realm monster beast, it also had amazing talent and supernatural powers. If it could be used, Chinyu inspected it and revealed a disappointed expression. As he thought, the dream of refining Stormflow at the divine soul level wasn't too realistic. What a useless fellow. What a waste of time growing up. Chinyu curled his lips. Just as he was about to leave, his eyes flashed, and he reached out a hand. Puff! The point between the blood eye-beheading ape's eyebrows shattered and a blood-red bead appeared. This was its third blood eye. After the blood eye-beheading ape died, it actually became like this. This was a bit unexpected. Holding it in his hand, it felt hard and cool like some kind of jade. But there was a crack on its smooth surface. It was likely caused by the backlash. Thinking for a moment, Chinyu probed the bead with his divine sense. In the next moment, his complexion changed, and he severed the connection with this divine sense without hesitation. His face paled. As his divine sense probed the bead, it was like entering an incomparably terrifying sea of blood. Monstrous, killing intent tumbled about, as if it could tear one's soul to pieces. If it weren't for Chinyu's prompt decision, he feared he would have suffered the impact of the blood sea. At the very least, his soul would have been greatly damaged. Chinyu took a deep breath and suppressed the shaking in his heart. Then, he held the bead formed from the blood eye, and a smile gradually appeared on his face. This object could be considered a pleasant surprise. Because of the cracks on its surface, it was only maintaining a fragile stability. Once it was shattered by an outside impact, the annihilating strength contained within would erupt. If you were to suddenly shoot out this blood eye when fighting with others, the effects would surely be excellent. Or it could be said that using it as a life-saving method wasn't bad either. Even a peak divine soul realm powerhouse wouldn't fare well against this blood eye. If that was the case, then it would be more valuable than a set of Stormflow magical treasures. Chinyu laughed several times and carefully put away the blood eye. Then, he took a step forward and held away. After a long time, a man and a woman walked out from the darkness, shivering. They looked at the scene of the Azura field on the ground. In particular, there were several monster beast corpses that had been skinned and torn apart. Their originally pale faces turned even whiter, and endless fear filled their eyes. SSSS brother. The woman stammered, nearly unable to speak. Her tears and snot mixed together, and she looked extremely distressed. Chapter 314. At the base of the mountain, in a wild jungle, a large area had been cleared out. Although it had been buried, the smell of blood still lingered in the air. This was the location that the Southshine Nation had chosen for the competition. It had just been sorted out several days ago. According to the Southshine Nation's usual style, the competition area would be built atop countless monster beast corpses. In other words, there were at least several thousand or even tens of thousands of monster beast corpses buried beneath this land. No wonder he always felt that the air here was filled with a cold and gloomy aura and resentment. This was likely caused by the monster beast corpses buried underground. It was said that the Southshine Nation did this to display their ruthless determination to strike down the monster beasts and also to increase the difficulty of the alchemy competition. If one couldn't even resist this infernal energy, then they weren't worthy of being called a true alchemist. But no matter what the goal was, this in itself was an astonishing act. Only the strength of an entire nation could gather such a powerful strength and accomplish this in a short period of time. Chinyu was now several miles away from this open space. Beneath his feet was an ancient tree that had grown for countless years. The tree was over 1,000 feet tall, and its trunk was like a giant pillar. It was thick enough for dozens of people to wrap their arms around it. It's not good to use it here. My current appearance is like this. Chinyu whispered to himself. He lifted his hand, and with a flash of light, a mask as thin as a cicada's wing appeared in his palm. It wriggled on his face, seeming to melt into his flesh and blood. Then, what appeared in front of him was a strange youth with dark skin. He jumped down from the tree. After several breaths of time, Chinyu changed into a plain robe and flew straight towards the competition field. When he registered, he wore a black robe. When he passed through the wilderness, he used his own appearance. And when he entered the competition, he used a mask to change into another face. It wasn't that Chinyu was deliberately mystifying others, but that he had no choice but to be cautious. The name Ning Qin had already offended many people, and the most important was Philosophy Watch. Chinyu didn't want to taint himself with troubles that he wouldn't be able to rid of in the future. As for Chinyu's appearance, he didn't believe that this grand alchemy competition that would sweep through the entire South Shine Nation wouldn't be broadcasted live. The Yu family was located in the southern Overwatch Pass. If they discovered Chinyu, he didn't need to be a genius to know what the consequences would be. In the end, it was all because his cultivation was too weak. Otherwise, why would he be so cautious? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was hiding his head but showing his tail. With a self-deprecating smile, Chinyu's feet touched the ground, and he truly entered the range of the martial field. In the next moment, his complexion changed. In his ears, the roars of countless monster beasts filled with pain, resentment, longing, and unwillingness seemed to ring out. It was like an invisible vortex that wanted to drag his soul into it. Chinyu's mind shook, and he immediately sobered up. A dignified expression crossed his face. This was the demonic aura emitted by the monster beasts that were killed. It was truly fierce. He praised inwardly. But he didn't know just how much of shock he had caused to the South Shine Nation officials who were waiting here. For ordinary cultivators, the first time they stepped into the midst of the fiendish demonic beasts, their minds would definitely be seized. To be able to sober up within 10 breaths of time was already a commendable feat. Most of them would have to stand there in a daze for a long time, and some might even shout and roar in fright. Compared to this, one could feel just how amazing Chinyu's performance was. Fellow Taoist, if you are here to participate in the competition, please show me your hourglass. A South Shine Nation official said, his tone much warmer. Such a character was bound to be extraordinary in the future. They naturally didn't dare to put on the airs of an official. Chinyu took out the hourglass. After carefully inspecting it, he found there weren't any problems. He placed it on the competition field and was warmly reminded, the competition will officially begin after a day of rest. Fellow Taoist can choose a place to stay and adapt to the monster beast slaughter energy as soon as possible so that you won't be affected as much as possible during the alchemy process. After thanking them, Chinyu stepped inside, leaving behind several cultivators who had just woken up, dumbfounded. Why were they so nice to him? It wasn't like this just now. Facing these questioning gazes, the South Shine Nation officials proudly chose to ignore them. If an idiot couldn't even understand this, then he was destined to have no achievements in his life. He certainly wasn't worth their attention. This wilderness trial seems to be very simple. I haven't even done anything yet. I've already arrived at the competition field. Who said it wasn't? It feels like the difficulty has dropped by several levels compared to what I heard. There's no challenge at all. Haha. I've only been hurrying along, and I haven't even seen half a shadow of a monster beast. It's simply unbelievably smooth. Could it be that the South Shine Nation officials have relaxed the conditions for participating? With so many people rushing in at once, I fear it will be lively once the competition officially begins. Voices mixed with excitement, joy, and all sorts of other emotions constantly spread into Chinyu's ears, causing him to think of White Feng and the others. Although he didn't know what the mystic beast fodder medicine was, its effects were obvious. After the South Shine Nation cleared out the wilderness, the vast majority of monster beasts would likely be drawn over to surround them. It was natural for the remaining participating cultivators to easily pass through. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He suddenly realized something. The land of divinity and demons actually had this sort of pill that could attract monster beasts on a large scale. As expected, the alchemy path was broad and profound. His previous understanding of alchemy had been far too shallow. As he was thinking, he heard several conversations in his ears. His complexion changed, and he quickened his steps, avoiding the several people walking towards him from behind. White Feng Feng stopped. She sniffed several times, a puzzled expression on her face. "Cousin, what is it?" Black Bebe asked. White Feng Feng sniffed again. "I think I can smell Big Brother Baoyu's scent. But there are too many people here and I can't find him." As she spoke, she fiercely glared at him. "Black Bebe, tell me the truth. Where did my Big Brother Baoyu go? Did you drive him away?" Black Bebe forced a smile. "Little aunt, how many times have I explained this? It was fellow Taoist Baoyu who left on his own. He said he had some matters to deal with. If you don't believe me, you can ask them. I really didn't drive him away." "What nonsense! Even if he had 9 lives, he wouldn't dare to do that. Brother Black truly didn't drive away Senior Baoyu." This was certainly true. Thus, Jiang Wuhai and Jiang Xin nodded repeatedly, not feeling any psychological burden at all. White Feng Feng revealed a suspicious expression. "Humph, I'll believe you for now, but if I ever find out that you lied to me in the future, Black Bebe, you're dead." Black Bebe had a helpless expression. All right. If I lied to you, then you can punish me however you want. Is that fine?" He quickly changed the topic. "Today, we're here to find trouble with others, so let's not waste any more time. Cousin, don't you want revenge?" This move was indeed useful. White Feng Feng clenched her teeth. "Let's go, we're going to find them." Qin Yu's forehead was covered in a cold sweat. This little girl's nose was truly extraordinary. Even with so many people around, she was still able to smell them. Luckily, he had reacted a step faster. Otherwise, things would have been troublesome. Just as he was preparing to leave, he never thought that this little girl, White Feng Feng's luck would be so good. She actually bumped into the person she wanted to take revenge on. With deep hatred and bitterness, there was nothing left for both sides to say, so they directly erupted. Like this, it wasn't good for him to turn around and leave. Moreover, Qin Yu also wanted to know just who it was that wanted to kill this little girl, White Feng Feng. Qin Yu chose a more remote location. He stood in the crowd and looked towards the scene. Black Bebe's pitiful appearance from before had been swept away. His handsome face was as cold as ice, and his eyes flashed with killing intent. "Zhao Jiuqian, Lord Black really underestimated you in the past. I never thought you would dare to play with such a large hand." Across from him, a youth with long and narrow eyes revealed a relaxed expression as he saw that White Feng Feng and the others were safe and sound. Then he sneered, "Black Bebe, don't slander me. What does it have to do with me that you've caused a disaster?" Black Bebe sneered. "It seems I overestimated you. You actually dared to do something like this, and yet you don't dare to admit it." He reached out a hand. "Cousin, take out the evidence." White Feng Feng's face was cold, and her eyes were indifferent. There wasn't the slightest bit of craziness from before. Instead, every movement she made exuded a noble and inviolable feeling. She lifted a hand and took out the mystic beast fodder medicine she had found in the hairpin. A faint fishy smell immediately wafted out. Zhao Jiuqian's pupils violently shrank. Black Bebe coldly said, "Look carefully. Is this the unique mystic beast fodder medicine of your cleansing temple? If I don't look for you, who else should I look for? I wasn't the one who did this." Zhao Jiuqian was startled and angered. When he heard everyone mention that the wilderness smelting trial was incomparably easy, he had already felt a sense of unease. But he didn't expect things to be so serious. That's right, he had indeed ordered people to play some small tricks. But his goal was to trap White Feng Feng and the others so that they wouldn't be able to arrive at the martial field within a day and thus lose the qualifications to participate. But he absolutely didn't, nor did he dare to use the mystic beast fodder medicine. This was no longer stopping them, but naked murder. Zhao Jiutian's back dripped with a cold sweat. Even though he had an honored status, if these people in front of him really died, his fate wouldn't be any better. This bastard, just what was going on? This was simply trying to kill him. He couldn't admit it. Even if he died, he couldn't admit it, otherwise he would be in deep trouble. Black Bebe sneered again and again. Only the direct descendants of Cleansing Temple have the qualifications to use the mystic beast fodder medicine, and you have a grudge with us, as well as a sufficient motive to do so. And now you say that you didn't do it? Fine, I will give you a chance to clarify yourself. In the wilderness, the White family has a secret technique called soul searching. It can determine whether a cultivator's words are true or false, and I just happen to be skilled in this secret technique. If you have a clear conscience, then let me give it a try. Zhao Jiutian flatly refused. Black Bebe, don't be too insolent. I am a direct descendant of Cleansing Temple. How can I allow you to casually slander me? That's right, the mystic beast fodder medicine is indeed something that only my direct descendants can use. But over the years, there has always been a great deal of it that has spread outside. Just the mystic beast fodder medicine alone cannot be blamed on me. Just say, do you dare to let me give it a try? Humph. If any random dog or cat asked me to cooperate with them, where would I find the time to do so? Black Bebe, if you have evidence, then take it out. If you don't, then I won't accompany you any further. At this time, a light voice sounded out. My family's miss has encountered a dangerous situation. Before we find out what happened, you cannot leave. It was unknown when a middle-aged man had appeared beside White Feng Feng, but as his words fell into the ears of those around him, they were like a giant boulder falling into a lake, setting off endless waves. Uncle Ming. White Feng Feng bowed, her young face cold. I'll have to trouble you with this matter. Chapter 315. Zhao Jiutian felt his scalp tingle and his face stiffened. Although he knew that this matter would set off a great uproar, he didn't think it would alarm a master of this level. Ming Siyuan was one of the top masters of the Great Desolate Lake. His status was only inferior to that couple that controlled everything. Since he had personally come here, it was clear he wouldn't give up so easily. Black Bebe quickly bowed, his voice incomparably respectful, and his eyes filled with awe and worship. Black Bebe, you were careless and caused a miss to encounter danger. After the competition ends, go to Wild Temple and receive your punishment. Yes, revered Ming. Ming Siyuan looked up, his eyes not falling on Zhao Jiutian. He lightly said, Fellow Taoist Yuan, since you've arrived, why haven't you shown yourself? Revered Ming, it's been several decades since we last met, and your cultivation has surpassed the past. This brother here admires you. Yuan Tiangang stepped through the void. Although each step he took seemed silent, it actually caused ripples to appear in the void. Ming Siyuan's expression didn't change. I also admire fellow Taoist Yuan's cultivation. But today, your cleansing temple must give me an explanation. In that instant, the void froze. It was like an invisible mountain was pressing down. All cultivators found it difficult to even breathe. In particular, Zhao Jiutian and the other cleansing temple cultivators paled. Their mouths were wide open in panic, but they couldn't utter a single sound. Yuan Tiangang laughed. Revered Ming is still as straightforward as ever. Brother, I won't speak any nonsense. This matter wasn't done by us. He landed beside Zhao Jiutian, as if he had stepped into a frozen lake. An invisible impact instantly shattered the frozen void. This was an evenly matched battle. Of the many cultivators present, only a few were able to understand what was happening. Xinyu was one of them. His complexion was dignified and his heart was filled with praise. To change the rules of the world with a single gesture and borrow the strength of the world for one's own use. The Blue Sea realm was truly worthy of being called a terrifying existence that could turn the Blue Sea into a mulberry field with a single thought. It was truly terrifying. That girl White Fengfeng's accident had actually drawn in such a supermaster. His background was likely far more astonishing than he had imagined. Luckily, after he had put on an act, he had left without hesitation. Otherwise, in front of this revered Ming, he feared he would have been seen through with a single glance. Ming Siyuan's eyelids drooped. Yes or no? Words have no basis. Yuan Tiangong's smile faded. When he smiled, he gave people a feeling of unparalleled heroism. At this time, his face was taut, and suddenly he gave birth to endless ruthlessness. Revered Ming, can't my brother's words be used as evidence? Ming Siyuan lightly said, if it were me, then fellow Taoist Yuan's words would be sufficient evidence. But today, I represent the great desolate lake's mistress. If fellow Taoist Yuan really wants to take responsibility for this matter, I'm afraid that my mistress will personally ask you for confirmation in the future. There was a trace of fear in Yuan Tiangong's eyes. After a little silence, he smiled again. Since Lord Ming is so insistent, I will naturally give you face. Jiuqian, tell me honestly, did you do it? Jiuqian clenched his teeth and bowed. Revered Yuan, there's indeed a subordinate cultivator who proposed to me to borrow the strength of the wild monster beasts to prevent White Feng Feng and the others from participating in the competition. But I have already refused this request. Yuan Tiangang was expressionless. Who suggested it to you? Where's that person? Jiuqian respectfully said, it was Zhao Fuyue. He was injured and is currently recuperating in his residence. He rejoiced inwardly. Luckily, he had made preparations beforehand. Otherwise, he really would have been in trouble today. Yuan Tiangang lightly said, bring him here. Ming Siyuan said, perhaps we should go. Yuan Tiangang smiled. Good, then let's do as revered Ming says. Zhao Jiuqian personally led the way. Countless cultivators followed closely behind. This was a confrontation between Blue Sea Realm's supreme elders. It was rare to see such a lively scene. The South Shine Nation officials seemed to have already been warned, so they didn't intervene and allowed the great desolate lake and cleansing temple to do as they pleased. Zhao Fuyue's residence wasn't too far away, so they soon arrived. Zhao Jiuqian personally knocked on the door, but there was no response. His complexion changed. He clenched his teeth and kicked the door open. There was no one inside. Zhao Jiuqian's heart skipped a beat. Facing Yuan Tiangong's icy cold eyes, he began to sweat profusely. Impossible, he was here just now. Maybe he had something to do and went out for the time being. A sharp light flashed in Ming Siyuan's eyes. You little thing, just where do you think you're going? He lifted a hand and grasped out. Heaven and earth's spiritual energy crazily gathered, turning into a giant hand that grabbed a cultivator that was trying to sneak away in the distance and instantly pulled him in front of him. Zhao Jiuqian, is this the subordinate you spoke of? Zhao Jiuqian paled. Although he knew things were bad, he didn't dare to deny it. This wasn't a secret, and he could find out as long as he investigated. He braced himself and nodded. That's right, it's him. He clenched his teeth and roared. Zhao Fuyue, why are you running away? Could it be that you were the one who secretly harmed fellow Taoist White Feng Feng? Zhao Fuyue's complexion was drained of blood, and his face was filled with panic. Young Master Jiutian, save me, save me. I was just following your orders. Now that there's a problem, you can't just ignore me. Zhao Jiutian's field of vision darkened, and he nearly fell to the ground. His first thought was, just who was this bastard that he'd dare to harm him? Shut up. What nonsense are you spouting? When did I order you to harm White Feng Feng and the others? Zhao Fuyue, think carefully before you speak. Be careful that your mouth doesn't cause trouble. Ming Siyuan swept his eyes around. Are you threatening me in front of me? Zhao Jiuqian felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He hurriedly bowed. This junior doesn't dare. Ming Siyuan coldly snorted. Zhao Fuyue, speak. Beneath his gaze, Zhao Fuyue shivered like a sieve. I have evidence. I have evidence. He trembled and took out a hand phone from his chest. He unlocked it and opened the camera app. He found a recording file and opened it. On the hand phone screen, a video immediately began to play. In a dimly lit room, Zhao Jiuqian handed a round object to a middle-aged cultivator. It wasn't clear what he said, but from the cold sneer on his face, it was clear that he wasn't speaking kindly. The video ended. Zhao Jiuqian paled. His eyes widened, filled with disbelief. There was only one thought in his mind. How was this possible? How was this possible? A cold light flashed in White Fengfeng's eyes. She lightly said, "Uncle Ming, the mystic beast fodder medicine in my hand was taken from the hairpin I bought. The middle-aged cultivator in the video is the one who sold me the hairpin." Whoosh! The crowd stirred. They looked at Zhao Jiuqian with eyes full of sympathy. At this point, even if he had 100 mouths, he still wouldn't have a chance to defend himself. Moreover, he couldn't blame anyone else for this. Even such a confidential matter had been recorded. If he didn't die, then he would feel sorry for his stupidity. Ming Siyuan narrowed his eyes. "Fellow Taoist Yuan, what else do you have to say?" Yuan Tiangang was silent for a moment. He lightly said, "I will personally interrogate him." "All right." Ming Siyuan let go, and Zhao Fuyue fell to the ground. But in the next moment, he stomped his feet and fled outwards. Yuan Tiangang was expressionless. He lifted a hand and pointed forwards. The void instantly froze. The surrounding cultivators subconsciously widened their eyes and secretly gave him a thumbs up. In front of a blue sea realm, he actually tried to escape. This level of intelligence was truly incredible. But at this time, an accident occurred. The imprisoned Zhao Fuyue trembled and blood gushed out from his head. His eyes dimmed and lost all luster. He died. This result was unexpected. The air fell, deathly silent. Then, everyone's eyes subconsciously fell on Yuan Tiangang. Silence him. Without needing to think about it, this thought directly leapt out from the depths of their hearts. Yuan Tiangong's face darkened. He lifted his hand and pulled Zhao Fuyue's corpse to his side. After probing it with his divine sense, a cold light rose in his eyes. This person's organs had been directly shattered by a formidable strength, and even his soul had been erased by some unknown strength. And he, Yuan Tiangang, just happened to have the means to accomplish this in silence. With this, there really was no way to explain it. Ming Siyuan's complexion darkened. "Fellow Taoist Yuan, what do you mean?" Yuan Tiangang sucked in a deep breath. "Revered Ming, I cannot explain it clearly right now, but you must believe that there must be some other plot behind this. Please give me some time to clearly investigate this matter." Ming Siyuan lightly said, "Fellow Taoist Yuan, I won't stop you if you want to investigate, but you must hand this junior over to me." After being pointed at, Zhao Jiutian's eyes immediately revealed endless fear. Yuan Tiangang frowned. "Revered Ming, I cannot agree to this." Ming Siyuan said, "Fellow Taoist Yuan is prepared to protect him at all costs." Yuan Tiangang said, "I ask revered Ming to give me some time." Ming Siyuan stepped forwards. "The dignity of the great desolate lake's young master cannot be offended by anyone." Bang! In that instant, the might of the blue sea realm swept out in all directions like a tide. The void seemed to transform into a raging sea. Heaven-shaking waves surged up and down, bursting out with 1,000,000,000,000 destructive strengths. Yuan Tiangang sighed. "This isn't what I wanted. I ask revered Ming to forgive me." His expression turned solemn. In the eyes of everyone, his figure instantly rose up like a divine mountain in the sea. No matter how monstrous the waves were, they still couldn't shake him in the least. Cries of alarm rose up from the crowd. As everyone retreated, they didn't forget to take out their handphones and excitedly open their recording apps. This was a battle between Blue Sea Realm Supreme Masters. To be able to witness this with their own eyes was enough to brag about for decades. Of course, it was necessary for him to post a copy to his WeChat moments to show off to others. Qin Yu mixed in the crowd. He swept his eyes around and saw the excited crowd. He thought to himself that it was too early for them to be happy. Unless the South China Nation officials didn't plan on holding the competition as scheduled, it was impossible for them to allow two Blue Sea Realm super powerhouses to fight on the field. And sure enough, as Ming Siyuan and Yuan Tiangong's auras became increasingly strong and space trembled as if it would collapse, a figure appeared on the field without warning. Revered Ming, revered Yuan, I'm overjoyed that you two came in person. But tomorrow is the competition day, so I ask that you two be magnanimous and not make things difficult for me. He wore a blue robe, and a light smile hung on his face. But at this moment, no one could ignore this elegant cultivator who had suddenly intervened. At first, his aura wasn't too formidable. But as one went a step further, they discovered that ever since he arrived, it was like a great net had appeared between the heavens and earth, trapping everyone within. Perhaps they couldn't feel the might of this net at this time, but once it tightened, no one could escape. Chapter 316. Ming Siyuan furrowed his eyebrows. After a moment of silence, he slowly retracted his aura. Exalted Yun, I was impetuous today, but this matter was personally ordered by my family's mistress. I will not give up. He coldly swept his eyes over Zhao Jiuqian and then cupped his hands together. Young master, let's go. White Feng Feng nodded. With a taut face, she led her people away. The crowd of onlookers retreated like a tide, each one revealing a deep awe in their eyes. This little girl, when she put on airs, she really did seem like she was the real deal. Yuan Tiangang bitterly smiled. He cupped his hands together and said, Exalted Yun, I was in the wrong today. Thank you for helping me out. Yin Ilan smiled. If the two of you can stop, that is already giving me face. But, revered Yuan, you must deal with this matter as soon as possible. He nodded and stepped away, teleporting away. Yuan Tiangong's eyes turned cold. Zhao Jiuqian, come with me. He didn't forget that he had taken away Zhao Fuyue's corpse and inexplicably ruined his plan. He naturally wouldn't swallow this loss in silence. The South Shy Nation had built many temporary wooden houses. Yuan Tiangang pushed open the door and walked in. Behind him, Zhao Jiuqian fell to his knees, his body shivering. Yuan Tiangang didn't look at him. After sitting down, he closed his eyes and thought. After a long time, he opened his eyes, and a cold light erupted several feet from them. Zhao Jiuqian, I will ask you this once. Were you the one who made the mystic beast fodder medicine? Zhao Jiuqian shook his head again and again. Revered Yuan, please understand. Although Jiuqian isn't talented, he still has some brains. How about he try to kill White Feng Feng and the others? This must be a plot. Perhaps the Great Desolate Lake is taking advantage of this opportunity to cause trouble for my cleansing temple. Yuan Tiangang coldly sneered. The protection of God has already appeared. The Bai family's daughter must have encountered a life or death danger. That couple from the Great Desolate Lake would never do such a thing. He twirled his fingers, and his eyes became increasingly cold. I believe that you don't have the courage, but your stupidity makes this matter impossible to explain. Zhao Jiuqian, your mistake will cause tremendous damage to the entire situation. If you can smoothly take first place in the competition, there might be a chance to turn things around. Otherwise, you don't want to know what your fate will be. Zhao Jiuqian began to sweat. Revered Yuan, rest assured that this disciple will do his best. Elsewhere, everyone from the Great Desolate Lake had already settled down. Ming Siyuan's expression was still indifferent, but there was a hint of intimacy in his eyes. Young master, you've really gone too far this time. If something goes wrong, I'm afraid the sky will collapse. Uncle Ming, aren't I fine now? Now that there were no outsiders, White Feng Feng immediately dropped her cold and lofty facade. She had a cute and innocent expression on her face. That Zhao Jiuqian is too much of a bastard. He actually wanted to kill someone as beautiful and cute as me. This is unforgivable. Black Bebe's lips twitched. Of course, at this time he wouldn't retort. As for Ming Siyuan, he seemed to have long since grown accustomed to this. His expression didn't change as he said, this matter isn't necessarily the work of cleansing temple. White Feng Feng's eyes widened, a sweet and innocent expression on her face. Ming Siyuan shook his head. You don't need to worry about this matter anymore. I will investigate it myself. If there really is someone secretly inciting disharmony, then our relationship with cleansing temple Before he finished speaking, a cold light flashed in his eyes. It was enough to explain everything. Restraining the killing intent in his heart, Ming Siyuan lightly said, "You still haven't told me how you escaped from the trap of the mystic beast fodder medicine." White Feng Feng proudly stuck out her chest. "It was absolutely my big brother Baoyu's contribution." Ming Siyuan frowned. His eyes fell on Black Bei. Black Bei groaned inwardly. Senior Baoyu's warning was still vivid in his mind, so how could he dare to speak of it? But if he didn't, then with revered Ming's temper, he would definitely skin him alive. This was truly tragic. Feeling revered Ming's eyes turn increasingly cold, Black Bei braced himself and said, "Reporting to revered Ming, what Feng Feng said is correct. The reason we were able to survive was because Senior Baoyu rescued us. But before Senior Baoyu left, he told us not to tell anyone about his matters." White Feng Feng's eyes widened. She suddenly cheered. "I knew that my big brother Baoyu was the strongest. He was countless times stronger than Black Bei. Also, you hateful Black Bei, you actually dared to lie to me. Hurry up and tell me where my big brother Baoyu went." Looking at White Feng Feng baring her fangs and brandishing her claws, Black Bei nearly cried. "My dear grandaunt, could you not interfere at this time?" Ming Siyuan narrowed his eyes. "Baoyu, Black Bei, tell me everything you know." Black Bei opened his mouth, but didn't dare to utter a single word of refusal. He could only cry and recount what happened that day. As White Feng Feng heard Qin Yu display his invincible might and slaughter his way through the monster beast horde, finally using his own strength to scare away all the monster beasts, her eyes sparkled like little stars. She couldn't help but look at him with worship. Ming Siyuan revealed a dignified expression. "You're saying that he only has a nascent soul cultivation, but was able to erupt with the combat strength of his divine soul. Moreover, his supernatural power even defeated the beheading bloodlight and triggered a backlash that killed the blood-eyed beheading ape?" Black Bei nodded. "Yes." Ming Siyuan was silent for a long time. "Black Bei, if today's matters enter my ears, do not mention them to anyone else. Do you understand? Such a serious tone could it be?" Black Bei was startled. He nodded again and again, but his complexion paled even more and a bitter taste filled his mouth. White Feng Feng blinked her eyes. "Uncle Ming, what are you talking about?" Ming Siyuan thought for a moment. "Young master, can you tell me why you're so close to this stranger you've only met twice?" White Feng Feng bit her finger, thinking for a long time. I don't know. At first glance, I thought that Big Brother Baoyu was a very, very good person, and I wanted to be good friends with him. Then, the more I interacted with him, the more I felt that Big Brother Baoyu was far too good. Compared to a certain cousin of mine, he was at least 100,000 times better. Brother Black, who had been implicated once more, had tears streaming down his face. Ming Siyuan let out a long breath. If Miss has such a reaction, then it should be correct. After thinking for a moment, he decided to tell them about this matter, so that these two little fellows wouldn't inadvertently speak of it and provoke a great deal of trouble. "Young master, if I'm not wrong, this fellow Taoist Baoyu should be a reincarnated cultivator. He has awakened his consciousness before entering the divine soul realm. Unless he had some heaven-defying good fortune, he should have stepped into samsara with his consciousness. The possibility of the former is nearly negligible, so the greatest possibility is that this fellow Taoist Baoyu must have been a peak character in his previous life." He didn't speak too clearly, but with White Feng Feng and Black Bei's status, they had the qualifications to come into contact with some extremely secretive matters of the world. For instance, reincarnation and samsara. The truth was that every life form had a past life. It was just that in samsara, all soul marks would be washed away and the memories of their past life would turn to smoke. But if one's cultivation in their past life was high enough, then when a cultivator stepped into the divine soul realm and opened up their soul space, there was a chance they could awaken a portion of their past life's incomplete memories. These memories were often the greatest obsessions of their past life. It was unknown how good or bad their effects were. Some could cause a person's personality to change, and some could allow them to obtain the inheritance of their memories and become incomparably powerful. And in samsara, there was also an extremely special and rare existence. That was the reincarnation of consciousness. This sort of reincarnation could even choose their own reincarnated body. This involved the power of samsara and the rules of the great Tao. The difficulty was nearly unimaginable. Of course, once one succeeded, the harvest would be astonishing. This was because this sort of reincarnated person would have the complete memories of their past life from the day they were reborn, and they would also have an outstanding mortal body that they had chosen ahead of time. In an extremely short period of time, they could grow once more, even reaching a boundary that was even more formidable than their previous life. This sort of samsara was called the reincarnation of a deva, and those that had the qualifications to be called a deva were at least at the calamity immortal realm. Cultivation defied the heavens and changed one's destiny, rising step by step, becoming increasingly powerful. After nascent soul came the divine soul, and after divine soul came the blue sea, controlling the rules. And after the blue sea came the calamity immortal realm. Those at this boundary could be called immortals. They stood at the final hurdle of ascending to the heavenly Tao. If they didn't perish after withstanding the 3 calamities and 10 tribulations, they could step onto the transcendent great Tao. In a land of divinity and demons, the transcendent great Tao only appeared in legends. Even the emperor-level existences that controlled a great empire and borrowed the destiny of the nation to resist the heavenly Tao were only calamity immortals. In other words, the calamity immortal realm was the highest peak existence in a land of divinity and demons. Black Bebe had a dazed expression. Although he had suspected this before, the impact of hearing it from revered Ming's mouth was on a completely different level. Calamity immortal. Calamity immortal. These 2 words were like endless bolts of heavenly thunder. They rumbled in his mind, tearing apart all his thoughts. Even breathing became incomparably difficult. This little girl, White Fong Fong, was also stunned. But in a short period of time, she regained her composure. Then, her eyes brightened and she screamed, "Calamity immortal! My big brother Bao Yu is a calamity immortal! Ha ha! My big brother Bao Yu is a calamity immortal! With this, who dares to bully me? From now on, I, White Fong Fong, will have the qualifications to walk sideways." In a trance, Black Bebe was awakened by this laughter. His lips twitched, and he subconsciously wanted to taunt her. But as he thought of the way Senior Bao Yu had looked at White Fong Fong before he left, his heart skipped a beat, and he didn't dare to say anything. Ming Siyuan said in a low voice, "That's enough. This is only my guess, and I can't be sure right now. The reason I am telling you all this is to have you remember not to speak of this matter to anyone else." Black Bebe, the 2 juniors of the Jiang family, personally warned them and have them forget about this matter. He paused for a moment, his voice becoming increasingly low. A person that is suspected to be the reincarnation of a calamity immortal will attract countless greedy eyes. Even if I don't say it, you should all be aware of this. If news of this were to leak out, the consequences would be inconceivable. There was also something he didn't say. If a great uproar were to arise, then with the abilities of a reincarnated calamity immortal, it shouldn't be difficult for him to escape. But he would inevitably bear a grudge against the great desolate lake. To be remembered by such a character, even the powerful great desolate lake would find it hard to escape destruction. White Fong Fong nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Then she suddenly thought of something. She turned and viciously said, "Surname Black, just a little bit of wine and you've lost control of your mouth. From now on, you better stop drinking. If you dare to say a single word about it, I will make sure you never see the light of day again." Chapter 317. At this time, Qin Yu naturally didn't know that his performance of repelling the monster beast had been misunderstood by Black Bebe and then passed on to Ming Siyuan, creating an exaggerated misunderstanding. At this time, he had come to a random wooden house he had chosen. He calmly sensed the fierce and ominous aura that flooded the space. With the little blue lamp in hand, you didn't fear refining pills. But the crux of the matter was that he had to at least refine the pill. Otherwise, no matter how heaven-defying the little blue lamp was, it still wouldn't be able to do anything. The ominous aura outside would indeed have a considerable impact on alchemy. Qin Yu's only goal in participating in this competition was to obtain the treasure furnace remnant spirit that the fleeting flame furnace desperately needed. In other words, only by winning first place would everything he did have any meaning. In a land of divinity and demons, there were as many geniuses as there were stars in the sky. Qin Yu didn't dare to be careless. The night passed without words. Early the next morning, a bell rang out. Qin Yu opened his eyes, a sharp light flashing in them. It was impossible to completely ignore the ominous aura outside in a single night. But after adapting, he was able to greatly reduce the effects of alchemy. Qin Yu stood up, tidied himself up a bit, and pushed open the door. Facing the rising sun and the dense mountain forest, he let out a light breath. The competition was about to begin. The Southshine Nation officials were very straightforward. Without any nonsense, they announced the first step of the competition, choosing a pill furnace. Everyone knew just how important a pill furnace was to an alchemist. Between high grade and low grade, a pill furnace had an extremely important effect on the quality of the pill. The Southshine Nation's actions were deeply supported by the vast majority of young alchemists. After all, everyone came from different backgrounds. If one had wealth, power, or background, they could directly use a treasure furnace to refine pills. Even if their level was average, they still had some confidence they could rush into the finals and even become the champion. If so, then this competition would have lost all meaning. Qin Yu followed the crowd and arrived at a black iron pagoda. This pagoda had 9 levels and was over 100 feet high. The surface was covered in rust and had an ancient aura. A Southshine Nation official stepped out. Fellow participating Taoists, although you all know the rules, in order to ensure fairness, I must delay everyone for a bit of time. He turned and pointed. This pagoda is called the Pill Furnace Pagoda. There are 10,000 pill furnaces placed inside. Of these, 100 are of perfect quality, 1,000 are of inferior quality, 2,000 are of inferior quality, and the rest are of inferior quality. Whether the pill furnace was good or bad, no one could judge it. It all depended on one's luck. Of course, I must remind everyone that the higher you go in the pill furnace pagoda, the higher the chances of a high-quality pill furnace appearing will be. Once the wind chimes sound, everyone can use their divine sense to choose a pill furnace. In the crowd, everyone had dignified expressions on their faces. After all, the quality of the pill furnace would greatly affect the outcome of the competition. Of course, it wasn't that there weren't people who were dissatisfied with this method. But to a cultivator, luck was an extremely important thing. Even if they picked a poor pill furnace, that was their fate, and they couldn't blame anyone else. Ding, ding, ding. On top of the rusty iron tower, the wind chimes suddenly rang. However, when this sound entered the ears, it was not pleasant at all. Instead, it was like the sound of iron and stone rubbing against each other, sharp and ear-piercing. The faces of many cultivators instantly turned pale, as if they had been hit in the head with a stick. Their vision darkened, and the divine sense that they had been preparing to attack slowed down. Qin Yu frowned, but in the blink of an eye, his divine sense broke out from his body and broke into the pill furnace pagoda. The first people to do this were all well-known figures with formidable cultivation bases among the participating cultivators. As the divine wills entered, the wind chimes at the corners of the pagoda began to ring louder and louder, as if they were stabbing needles into one's head. Ah, save me, save me. My head hurts. I'm going to die. Outside of the pill furnace pagoda, almost 20% of the participating cultivators had fallen to the ground and were screaming in pain. Their faces were twisted with pain. As for the remaining cultivators, there were many who had pale faces and cold sweat dripping down their cheeks. They clenched their teeth and barely managed to steady their minds. In the distance, in a wooden pagoda, Yin Ilan was drinking tea with his head lowered. The miserable screams carried by the wind didn't cause his complexion to change at all. Exalted One, aren't we going too far by doing this? After all, most of them are just golden core and nascent soul realm juniors. How could they possibly resist the might of an unsealed pagoda bell? An official hesitantly said. Yin Ilan put down his teacup. He lightly said, I don't want to care about the dirty dealings between the great desolate lake and cleansing temple, but I can't allow the competition to lose its decorum because of them. With so many people, we have to eliminate some of them, otherwise the competition will be too slow. Don't worry, I've already marked the pagoda's spirit with my divine might. Once a cultivator surpasses the limits of what they can withstand, they will directly faint, and there won't be any irreparable damage. As for the suffering they are suffering right now, just consider it their punishment for taking advantage of a loophole to participate in the competition. Qin Yu's complexion was dignified. Although he didn't know that this was Yin Ilan's arrangement, it wasn't hard to guess what the South Shine Nation was thinking. This was to continue the screening process that had yet to be completed in the wilderness trial. They wanted to eliminate those who tried to pass themselves in and ensure that the competition could proceed effectively. Although there was nothing wrong with doing this, as he swept his eyes around and saw the miserable screams of people, he felt that this method was a bit too radical. Of course, this wasn't wrong, but Qin Yu didn't have any thoughts of raising any objections. At this time, he stimulated his divine sense with all his strength, constantly breaking through the barriers and rushing into the higher levels of the pagoda. The rusty pill furnace pagoda had an ordinary appearance and a vulgar name, but it was truly extraordinary. In fact, it could even be called the most mystical treasure that Qin Yu had ever seen in his life. Once one's divine sense entered, it was like a thin cover covering it. This cover isolated the probing of one's divine sense, but it still retained the most basic senses. Thus, one could choose a pill furnace and bring it out, but they didn't know if it was beautiful or if it had a few pockmarks on its face. Moreover, the interior of the pill furnace pagoda used an invisible energy to separate each level. There was simply no space left for one to pass through. If one wanted to go up, they could only force their way through. This energy was ice cold. When one's divine sense crashed into it, it was like jumping into a frozen lotus pond in the middle of a winter night. There was no need to describe this feeling. Moreover, the higher one went, the stronger the chill of the invisible energy became. By the time Qin Yu reached the 8th level, he found it hard to continue. The invisible energy was like water. Every time a divine sense broke through it, it would cause ripples that could be sensed by other cultivators. As he tried to break through, 3 divine senses successfully broke into the 9th level. This left Qin Yu's heart cold. He sighed inwardly. This was truly the land of divinity and demons. There were countless cultivation geniuses here. Immediately, a heroic spirit burst forth from the depths of his heart. Qin Yu's eyes erupted with a brilliant divine light. So what if they were geniuses of the land of divinity and demons? Today, he might not necessarily be inferior to them. Bang! His divine sense rushed out with all its strength, causing the invisible energy to violently shake. Several divine senses that were stuck like Qin Yu and were trying to break through began to shout out in anger. In the next moment, beneath the pill furnace pagoda, several cultivators spat out a mouthful of blood. Their eyes flashed open, filled with rage. You bastard, who is playing tricks on the 8th level and ruining my plans. The competition hasn't even started, and I'm already at a disadvantage. Which fellow Taoist gave me such a great gift? I will return it double. You injured me and forced me to choose a medium-grade pill furnace. Don't let me find out who you are. You still have a medium-grade pill furnace, but I hastily chose a low-grade pill furnace. You bastard, I'll kill you. Their roars spread out like thunder. Many cultivators looked at them sympathetically, but they snorted disdainfully at their angry shouts. To be able to shake the invisible energy with a single strike and force them out, that person's divine sense was bound to be astonishingly strong. It was common knowledge that divine sense originated from the soul, and only when the soul reached the divine soul boundary could it truly begin to temper itself. Thus, the cultivation speed of the soul was far slower than the increase in magic power. If one's divine sense was stronger, then one's magic power would be stronger. This was a fact. Of course, there were exceptions. For instance, if one ate some heavenly material or something and their soul strength suddenly rose. Chinyu was certain that he was an exception. Thus, he rationally chose to ignore these angry roars. Cough, cough. Could it be that he really did something that angered the heavens and angered the people? No, I just wanted to break into the 9th level. Chinyu felt helpless. Luckily, in the next moment, there was a light cracking sound, and his divine sense seemed to enter a vast space. Without thinking about anything else, he swept his divine sense around him. This was the Pill Furnace Pagoda's 9th level. The interior of a magic treasure actually gave off a feeling of boundlessness and limitlessness. Before he could sigh in surprise, a deep rumbling sound echoed out from the distance, approaching at an astonishing speed. Chinyu's divine sense transformed into a phantom. He frowned as he looked towards the source of sound. After several breaths of time, his pupils shrank. It was an incomparably massive pill furnace. That's right, it was a pill furnace. But at this time, it was like a wild bull that had broken free of its reins, roaring as it rushed forwards. Although there was still some distance between them, Chinyu was well aware just what sort of terrifying strength this pill furnace carried with it. Although the reason he rushed into the 9th level was to seize this pill furnace, and this wild bull pill furnace was clearly not ordinary, Chinyu didn't have the slightest intention of taking it for his own. What nonsense! With this speed and this commotion, he feared that if his divine sense rushed forwards, he would be smashed to pieces before he could grab the pill furnace. Shwa! Chinyu's divine sense body instantly dodged to the side. He watched as the wild bull pill furnace rumbled past, continuing to rush into the distance. Just now, he had been thinking that he absolutely couldn't provoke this pill furnace. But as he watched it leave, he felt a bit reluctant in his heart. As long as one wasn't blind, they could see that this pill furnace was absolutely fierce. As if sensing Chinyu's reluctance, the howling pill furnace came to a sudden stop. Chinyu's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know why, but he suddenly had a foreboding premonition. Then, this premonition became reality in the next moment. Rumble, rumble. Chapter 3:18. Chinyu's eyes widened as he looked at the crazily rushing pill furnace. At this time, his mood was like a broken dog. Any feelings of reluctance or anything like that had long since been tossed to the highest heavens. His divine sense wasn't weak. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to enter the Pill Furnace Pagoda's 9th level. But if he really was struck by this crazy bull pill furnace, even if he didn't die, he would be severely wounded. If he couldn't provoke it, then he could always hide. After Chinyu's divine sense body dodged, he chose a direction and sped away. But after several breaths of time, there was a loud, rumbling roar behind him. His complexion changed, and he turned around to see that pill furnace stubbornly chasing after him, as if it wouldn't give up until it achieved its goal. Did I ever provoke you? Chinyu clenched his teeth and dodged once more. This time, the crazy bull pill furnace didn't even pause. It directly turned around, clearly targeting him. There weren't many divine senses on the Pill Furnace Pagoda's 9th level. Even in the land of divinity and demons, there weren't many young cultivators that could accomplish this. Originally, these divine senses were scattered to search for the pill furnace. But at this time, they were all drawn over by the eruption of activity. These divine senses stopped in the distance with curiosity in their hearts. Then, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Although it was a bit blurry and they couldn't clearly see who was being chased, they had all heard of that crazy and terrifying pill furnace before. There had always been a legend that there was an extremely terrifying pill furnace on the Pill Furnace Pagoda's 9th level. It came and went like a ghost, like a wild bull that galloped through the prairies, never tiring, recklessly venting its strength and power. Any young cultivator that had the qualifications to know of this was severely warned by their elders. If they really encountered this pill furnace, they weren't allowed to approach it even half a step. But they had never heard of this pill furnace chasing after someone. Could this fellow have run off to provoke it? TSK. This fellow must be tired of living. Their eyesight wasn't bad, and they could see that although the fleeing divine sense was fast and its aura wasn't weak, it was still a bit worse than this pill furnace. Once it caught up, that taste was like smashing a ripe watermelon to the ground. It was absolutely a sour feeling. The divine wills all revealed expressions of sympathy. This arrogant fellow was destined to suffer a great loss. Of course, no one would lend a hand to save him. After all, everyone was a competitor, and there was absolutely no weakling amongst those who were able to ascend to the 9th level. To be able to eliminate a strong competitor in advance was definitely a good thing. Qin Yu's complexion paled. He also discovered the dire situation he was in right now. This mad bull behind him was shockingly fast, and its endurance was even better. He couldn't see any signs of it stopping. And to maintain such an astonishing speed of escape, the consumption of his divine sense was enormous. If he continued like this, sooner or later he would be hit. Gritting his teeth, he cursed in his heart. I can't afford to provoke you, but I can at least run away. I'm not going to stay on the 9th floor anymore. Let's see what you can do then. Qin Yu stopped. He viciously glared at the oncoming pill furnace, a sneer on his face. When a cultivator's divine sense entered the pill furnace pagoda, they could withdraw at any time. This was the reason why Qin Yu was able to maintain his composure when he was being chased. But at this time, his smile froze and his complexion paled. He was actually unable to back out. And at this time, the mad bull was already very close to him. As the surrounding divine senses saw Qin Yu suddenly stop, they were all stunned. Then, just as the pill furnace was about to crash into him, they finally realized the reason. This fellow, could it be that he doesn't know that it is only in the space of the 9th level that he isn't allowed to leave before choosing a pill furnace? In fact, the inn had an extremely comprehensive collection of information regarding the competition and had given it to Qin Yu for him to study ahead of time. Unfortunately, after stepping into the Dao arena, Qin Yu had suffered a great blow when it came to treasures that could increase his talent. Afterwards, he had wholeheartedly focused on cultivation and had forgotten about it. If he could go back in time, Qin Yu swore that he would study hard. But it was already too late, so he had no choice but to swallow this bitter fruit. Of course, all of this was just random guesses. After Qin Yu recovered from his daze, he instantly regained his composure. His will had been tempered over the years, allowing him to display an extremely powerful self-control in this critical moment. Simply judging, it was already too late to dodge. Qin Yu shouted out loud, and the strength of his divine sense erupted. Closer, closer, the giant pill furnace rumbled into his eyes, finally occupying his entire line of sight. Qin Yu roared out loud. His palm touched the pill furnace, his expression firm and resolute. He had already prepared himself to withstand any terrifying pain. But in the next moment, he froze where he was. The pill furnace had stopped. That's right, from a high-speed sprinting state, it had instantly come to a standstill. Between extreme movement and extreme stillness, it was so smooth and natural, as if everything should be like this. Then, its 10-foot-tall body began to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, it turned into a pill furnace the size of a palm. Qin Yu blinked his eyes. And at this moment, the surrounding divine senses all seemed as if they had been struck by lightning. After a long time, they regained their composure, their mouths twitching. They had all seen strong starts and weak finishes before, but this was the first time they had seen such a strong start and weak finish. What the hell was going on? Didn't they say that it would be a ripe watermelon? How come in the blink of an eye, the fierce and wild bull, had turned into a docile little kitten. This was the pill furnace that the elders had solemnly warned more than once not to approach. As elders, how could they be so deceitful? Even a blind man could see that this pill furnace was absolutely extraordinary. It was likely the highest level of power within the entire pill furnace pagoda. To stare helplessly on as it was taken away by someone, and in such an unimaginably easy manner at that, they really couldn't reconcile with this. Some people weren't reconciled, so they were annoyed in their hearts. But some people weren't reconciled, so they directly took action. As Qin Yu was in a daze, a powerful aura suddenly attacked him from the side. He instantly woke up and tried to resist, but his divine sense was still shaken away. Although he wasn't injured, the pill furnace that had just fallen into his hand was sent tumbling away. The sneak attacker's divine sense laughed out loud and swept towards it. "Little darling, you are mine." The pill furnaces within the pill furnace pagoda could be snatched away. Many of the surrounding divine senses cursed at these idiots. Because of their slow reactions, they began to shed tears of regret. Damn, how come I didn't react at all? I could only stare helplessly on as this treasure was taken away by someone else. Now, it was already too late. This was because after obtaining the pill furnace, the divine sense could directly bring it away. Of course, regret was one thing. But what was even more tragic was the fellow who first obtained the pill furnace's approval. One idiot. After obtaining the pill furnace, he didn't immediately leave. Was he trying to act cool or something? Now that he couldn't act cool, he became an idiot. Haha. Everyone, take your time to search. I'll be leaving first. The divine sense wrapped around the pill furnace, and then both vanished from sight. So it was like this divine senses looked towards Qin Yu, their eyes full of ridicule and contempt. However, what surprised them was that the divine sense seemed to be very calm and did not fly into a rage. Had he gone insane from the shock? TSK, how pitiful. In truth, beneath the blurry image they could see, Qin Yu's complexion was extremely strange. He had a feeling that the pill furnace wouldn't be taken away. Moreover, that fellow who tried to steal it would likely suffer a great misfortune. As if to confirm Qin Yu's thoughts, with a cry of alarm, the divine sense and pill furnace that had vanished reappeared where they originally were. Then, the small and docile pill furnace suddenly emitted a thunderous roar, as if it were some sort of angry roar. Then, its volume began to wildly rise at an astonishing speed, restoring itself to its original size. But it didn't stop growing. It continued to grow until it was over 100 feet in size, and then fiercely fell down. This scene was like an Annie that weighed over 300 jeans grabbing onto a young man that weighed less than 90 jeans on the side of the road. She impatiently pulled down his pants and then forcefully smacked him. The consequences, the taste, just thinking about it was enough to make one's scalp tingle. Of course, it was only a slight tingling on the scalp. It was definitely not enough. The fellow who had been happy for less than a second after taking away the pill furnace suddenly let out an incomparably mournful howl. Then, that condensed divine sense was like a balloon that popped, breaking into countless pieces. There was a deathly silence. It wasn't until that cruel and ruthless pill furnace that had smashed apart his divine sense returned to the size of a palm and obediently fell in a Qin Yu's hand that everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. When placed together, it was actually quite a spectacular sight. At this time, the ridicule and disdain had long since disappeared. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. So it wasn't that this fellow didn't want to act, but that he wanted to wait a bit longer, so he could put on an even bigger show. And now, it seemed that the effect was explosive. The ups and downs of life were like this. Just a moment ago, they were crying tears of regret for their slow reaction. But in the next moment, their chrysanthemums tightened as they rejoiced at their own slowness. If it were them, as they thought of that cruel pill furnace and that merciless smack, many divine senses shivered until they were like sieves. Suddenly, a divine sense rapidly flew away. The remaining divine senses were stunned for a moment. It was unknown what they were thinking, but they quickly followed behind. In the blink of an eye, they had vanished without a trace. Then, all of them wiped away a cold sweat that didn't exist and let out long breaths of relief. Luckily, this fellow wasn't a cruel and merciless character. Otherwise, as long as he used the pill furnace as a weapon and ruthlessly threw it at them, their fates wouldn't be any better than the fellow who had just laughed for a second. This was too terrifying, too terrifying. This distance wasn't safe enough. I should run a bit further. Qin Yu's lips twitched. He could roughly guess why these divine senses were running away. He thought to himself, why are you running so fast? I'm not cough, I won't admit it. His mind was too shocked right now, so he didn't think of this brilliant plan. Hey, can you come back so we can compete and see whose reaction is faster? As his thoughts raced, perhaps because he felt that Qin Yu didn't have any intention of leaving, the pill furnace in his hand became unhappy. He thought to himself, since I've already flipped over your plate, do you think you can still run away? Chapter 319. His mind buzzed, and his consciousness returned to his body. The moment he opened his eyes, he heard a pitiful howl. He turned his head to see a cultivator wearing the robes of a South Shine Nation official firmly pressing down on a young man who was rolling on the ground in pain. This person's appearance wasn't bad. Looking at his exquisite robes, he should have some background. Unfortunately, his face was twisted and tears and snot flowed down his face. His robes were already dirty, and he looked no different from Madman. Naturally, he didn't have the least bit of elegance to speak of. Seeing that it was impossible to subdue him and that the ruckus was growing bigger and bigger, a gloomy-faced official who had been watching from the sidelines suddenly stepped forward and slapped his palm down. The howling came to an abrupt stop, but as everyone looked at the fellow whose head was half buried in the ground, countless people shrank back, feeling the pain in his place. Lift him up and take him away. The crowd drew back, not daring to stop this group of officials who were clearly in a bad mood. That was right. In the competition organized by the South Shine Nation officials, there were serious casualties. This would have an extremely bad impact on the reputation of the entire competition. This year's competition is really evil. In the previous competitions, choosing a pill furnace was always the simplest part. You could just go through the motions and be done with it. But this time, there was actually a tragedy of someone's divine sense being crushed to pieces. Even if there were miraculous pills, this dear friend would still be left with serious after effects. He might even die for the rest of his life. There's one more thing. Did you hear? 2 cultivators from some sect in West Creek found hundreds of demon corpses in the wild trial by fire. I'm pretty sure that's why the trial by fire was so easy. Meng Hao's eyes flickered. This matter has already spread out. Yesterday, when the Great Desolate Lake confronted a Blue Sea Supreme Elder from Cleansing Temple, the mystic beast fodder medicine was already revealed. Those people from Cleansing Temple were far too careless. Now that they have evidence, they can only refuse to admit it no matter what. I don't think this matter will end so easily. What you've heard is the emasculated version. This is the complete version. Those 2 cultivators from West Creek not only saw several hundred monster beast corpses, but they also encountered a freak who abused corpses. I heard that the scene was extremely bloody and that freak laughed as he abused the corpses. He even took a video, but afterwards, they seemed to have received a warning and this matter was suppressed. F***CK. There's actually such a person. Why do I feel a chill at the back of my head after hearing what you guys said? Black lines appeared on Qin Yu's forehead because he felt that if he understood correctly, the 2 things these people were talking about should be related to him. In any case, no one would know it was him. He stared at the pill furnace pagoda. Without accident, the mad cow pill furnace on the 9th level would soon come out. Even though he didn't know exactly what level it was, he knew that it was definitely very, very powerful. If a pill furnace of this level appeared, would there be any strange phenomena? At that time, it would be difficult for him to keep a low profile even if he wanted to. Moreover, if others found out that he was the cultivator who stole the pill furnace from the 9th level. That cultivator who had his divine sense blown up, and the influence behind him would never let this matter rest. To provoke himself into trouble for a moment of fame, this was a mistake that only a young man would make. As a shrewd and rational divine soul realm master, Qin Yu felt a headache coming on. He stared at the pill furnace pagoda, his body tensed. The magic power within his body sped up as he prepared to suppress the pill furnace. He only hoped that its performance wouldn't be too dazzling. The truth was that at this time, besides watching the fun, many of the surrounding cultivators were looking at Qin Yu. The vast majority of cultivators that passed the Pagoda Bells test had already obtained their own pill furnaces. The ones that hadn't obtained theirs were all masters because they had spent a great deal of time breaking through the pagoda. As for Qin Yu, he woke up at this time. In the eyes of the surrounding cultivators, he was naturally the symbol of a master. After the fun was over, everyone's eyes locked onto him. Perhaps most of these people didn't have a high cultivation, but their eyes weren't lacking. They could naturally see the dignified expression on Qin Yu's face, and they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Could this person have found an extraordinary pill furnace in the pill furnace pagoda? But before Qin Yu's pill furnace came out, there was a burst of laughter. Ha ha! High grade. It's actually a high-grade pill furnace. The chances of a high-quality pill furnace appearing on the 9th level are truly high. Zhao Jiutian had a smug expression. The taut strings in his heart loosened a little, and he let out a breath of relief. What nonsense! This was a high-grade pill furnace. According to the probability of past years, there wouldn't be more than 50. And of these 50 high-grade pill furnaces, less than 10 would actually fall into the hands of an alchemy master. Just based on this point alone, Zhao Jiutian had already gained the advantage in this competition that hadn't even truly entered the alchemy stage. In addition to cleansing Temple's series of arrangements, he even felt that the number 1 throne was already there, beckoning to him. Black Bebe's complexion darkened. He looked down at the pill furnace in his hand. There was only a tiny crack on its surface. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it. It could be considered the best medium-grade pill furnace. But a medium-grade pill furnace was still a medium-grade pill furnace. The disparity between it and a high-grade pill furnace wasn't just a little bit. In addition, there was a similar difference in alchemy strength between him and Zhao Jiutian. Unless this bastard made a mistake, his chances of winning were extremely small. Luckily, in the next moment, the pill furnace that White Feng Feng chose flew out from the pill furnace pagoda. Its surface was smooth and flawless, shining with a faint light beneath the sunlight. High grade. Black Bebe calmed down. He sneered. What are you being so arrogant for? You aren't the only one who obtained a high-grade pill furnace on the 9th level. The result is still unknown. Zhao Jiutian's complexion darkened. His lips curled up in a smile. So what if we're both high-grade pill furnaces? In the end, what the competition relies on is our own alchemy strength. Miss White's alchemy talent is good, but she is a bit young and her cultivation is a bit low. She was young and lacked experience. Her cultivation was low and her divine sense was poor. This was a fact that even Black Bebe had to admit. A bit of worry appeared on his face. If only he had a high-grade pill furnace in his hands. Unfortunately, after one's divine sense chose a pill furnace, it could only be used by the chosen cultivator. It couldn't be lent out. Everyone was well aware of the conflict between the Great Desolate Lake and Cleansing Temple, so they weren't surprised that both sides were at odds with each other. Rather, they were able to hear some information from their words. 9th level. Could it be that those that had awoken now were all fierce people from the 9th level? All around Qin Yu, the eyes that were focused on him immediately filled with awe. The pill furnace pagoda's 9th level. Not to mention anything else, just this point alone was enough to rank amongst the tens of thousands of people participating in the competition. But they had no idea what quality pill furnace he would obtain. Would it also be high grade? You people were strong enough to begin with, and now you even obtained a commercial pill furnace. How are we supposed to live? With the pill furnace pagoda as the core, several cries of alarm rose up from the crowd. Some were filled with envy, and some were filled with schadenfreude. It was clear that even on the 9th level, not everyone could obtain a high-quality pill furnace. As everyone watched, the powerhouses that had broken into the 9th level with their divine senses didn't know what they were looking at. They were all sizing each other up. A burst of fluctuations just now had shaken everyone back. Luckily, before they were forced back, several pill furnaces had appeared in front of them. They had been able to choose and grab one. Otherwise, if they had come out empty-handed, they wouldn't even have a place to cry to. And the reason for all of this was absolutely related to the fellow who had subdued the wild ox pill furnace. At this time, anyone who took a pill furnace could have been him. Everyone was certainly curious as to just who had such invincible might. Of course, after knowing his identity, they would be able to prepare early in the competition to avoid any accidents. There weren't many people that managed to break into the 9th level. Thus, the cries of alarm from the crowd soon died down. It seemed that everyone had already obtained their own pill furnace. Then, there was only Chinyu left. At this moment, it could no longer be described as the surrounding gazes. Rather, the entire audience's attention was focused on him. In particular, there were several particularly sharp gazes that caused Chinyu to groan inwardly. Now, he was increasingly certain that the pill furnace he obtained was because he was arrogantly putting on airs. Otherwise, why would he be the last to come out? With such a temperament, when he appeared on stage, how could he be weak? As Chinyu thought of the grim situation he would face next, his complexion became increasingly solemn. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. As this posture fell into everyone's eyes, they felt even more awe. From this person's posture, they could tell that he was a master, a master, a master. They couldn't help but admire him. The several people that came out from the 9th level, Black Bei, White Feng Feng, Zhao Jiuqian, and the others, all looked at Chinyu with surprise in their eyes. Could that person be him? But they didn't seem to have any impression of him at all. When did such an astonishingly strong, proud son of heaven appear in the South Shine Nation? After another period of time, as many people began to whisper in their hearts, Chinyu suddenly moved. A divine light burst out from his eyes. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. He was coming out. At this moment, the vast open space was deathly silent. Everyone's eyes were tightly locked onto the pill furnace pagoda. Then, amidst all the shouting, a pill furnace flew out. Then, there was an even more deathly silence. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at this pill furnace. If it weren't for the fact that most of the cultivators here had strong physiques, their eyes would have popped out of their sockets. The pill furnace was the size of a palm, about the same size as the ones in everyone's hands. It was gray in color, as if it had been sealed in a corner for hundreds of years. And what was most unacceptable was that there were 17 to 18 cracks on its surface. There was even a small piece missing from the mouth of the furnace. After a moment of shock, astonishment, and speechlessness, everyone gave birth to a feeling of anger that they had been fooled. Their general mood was, "My pants fine, I've been in a tight spot lately, so I won't take off my pants. I've even pulled out an ominous omen, and you want to show me something like this?" Chinyu was also stunned. It was only when the pill furnace flew to his side and nudged him with a bit of dissatisfaction that he subconsciously picked it up. He looked down. As he got closer, he could see that the cracks on the pill furnace's surface were even more obvious. They were like gaping mouths filled with ridicule. Although Chinyu really didn't wish for this pill furnace to appear in such a flashy manner and bring him unnecessary trouble, it shouldn't be rotten to such a degree. Basically, a single crack was considered medium grade, 3 to 5 cracks was low grade, and more than 5 cracks was low grade. You don't even need to count. You can see almost 20 cracks. What kind of low grade is this? This doesn't match your performance on the 9th level at all, big brother. Chapter 320. After a long period of silence, the deathly silent crowd finally erupted. This bastard, he actually played with everyone. Is he tired of living? He's been so stingy all this time, and now he's only brought out a low-grade pill. My eyes nearly went blind. If it weren't for the fact that the competition strictly forbids fights between participants, I would have definitely taught him what it means to have a fist as big as a bowl. To think that I was looking at him with such reverence just now, thinking about how I would do this and that with him. Fuck, does this count as me being defiled by him? The surrounding cultivators glanced at this big sister, whose arms were thicker than their own waist. Their faces paled, and they quickly suppressed the tumbling in their chests as they drew back. You're so ugly, so don't think too much about it. Although this person is hateful, he doesn't deserve death, moreover, to be together with you. I'm afraid that is 10 times worse than death. Zhao Jiuqian coldly snorted and looked away. This clown wasn't worthy of his attention at all. He swept his eyes around, wondering who it was that subdued the wild bull pill furnace on the 9th level. Black Bebe spat and rubbed his eyes, an angry expression on his face as if he had been visually raped. It definitely isn't that person. Damn it, I was waiting for nothing. White Feng nodded. She looked over, a bit of joy in her eyes. Just now she thought that this person's figure was similar to her big brother Baoyu's. Uncle Ming had also said that it was likely that her big brother Baoyu had come here for the competition. Luckily, this person had promptly revealed his true appearance. Otherwise, if she really did approach him, she might have been deceived by him and suffered a great loss. Thinking of this, the little girl's eyes suddenly turned fierce. She was like a vigilant little cat, as if she would scratch him to death if he approached. On the tower, Yin Ilan was holding a teacup, a dignified expression on his face. He helplessly shook his head. Youngsters these days, after being influenced by the internet, are willing to do anything in order to obtain attention. As he spoke, he leaned back in his chair, his eyebrows furrowed as if deep in thought. For this sort of clown like Junior to waste a single sentence of his time was already a great stroke of luck. At this time, all of this had already been tossed to the side. What Supreme Cloud was thinking now was who had obtained the cauldron on the 9th floor. The Great Desolate Lake and Cleansing Temple had both sent out quite a few people to participate this time. There were several juniors with decent talent and strength. Moreover, they were also on the 9th level and had a chance of obtaining a pill furnace. But there was one point that had to be clear. To Lord Revered Ming, let alone the 9th level, even the entire pill furnace pagoda only had a single pill furnace. In fact, the entire existence of the pill furnace pagoda was for this pill furnace. It had been silent for so many years, so long that it was nearly forgotten by others. But now it suddenly made a choice. Did this mean that it valued the cultivator it chose? Revered Ming, do you want us to secretly investigate who exactly obtained it? The South Shine Nation official said in a low voice. His eyebrows were furrowed together, and he seemed to be angry at himself. It was clear he wasn't an ordinary person. Yin Ilan smiled and shook his head. It's not that simple. Its abilities are not something you can imagine. Since it doesn't want to be found, then just ignore it. Once the competition begins, it will naturally appear. As he spoke, a sharp light flashed deep in his eyes. Since it had already awakened, it could only belong to the South Shine Nation. It was impossible for anyone to take it away. The selection of pill furnaces came to an end. Today's competition schedule had temporarily come to an end. Tomorrow, the alchemy would officially begin. With his formidable will, Qin Yu ignored the gazes around him that seemed to want to tear him apart. He returned to his cabin. He flipped his hand and took out the pill furnace. He stared at the cracks on its surface, a look of anticipation in his eyes. Although he hadn't been in a land of divinity and demons for long, he had heard of some television dramas. In the scripts, there were heaven-shaking treasures, but when they appeared, they were all very ordinary. For instance, a fire stick. Although the pill furnace in his hand looked a bit pitiful, Qin Yu had personally witnessed its fierceness in the pill furnace pagoda's 9th level. This appearance was definitely a deliberate disguise it put on in order to hide how eye-catching it was. Yes, that must be it. Thinking of this, Qin Yu felt a bit guilty. He had thought that it was a proud pill furnace that liked to show off, but it seemed he had misunderstood it. So it was actually so low-key and deep. Now, there was no one else here, so there was no need for you to hide anything. If you have any methods, hurry up and reveal them. Or perhaps there was a white-bearded old grandpa living inside. There seemed to be some broken script where there was a very fierce old grandpa living inside a ring. You're a pill furnace, and your space is much greater than a ring. It would definitely be too loose for a single person to live inside. So if several more popped out, I can accept it. Qin Yu's eyes widened. He waited for a moment, but the pill furnace remained silent. Its gray appearance didn't change at all. Qin Yu frowned. Then he suddenly realized something. I was too careless. No wonder you were so silent. Is it because you didn't open the spell? Don't worry, I will arrange it. After spending a great deal of effort, he laid down an array formation in the cabin, isolating the outside world. Qin Yu carefully sensed his surroundings and was satisfied with his results. Pill furnace, everything is fine now. You can begin to display your strength. There was silence. A dignified expression appeared on Qin Yu's face. On the 9th level, you were so unstoppable, and your might must have been heaven-shaking. I know you have some scruples in your heart, but I don't need you to erupt with your full strength. I only need you to reveal your true appearance. He looked at the crisscrossing cracks on the furnace body, and his lips twitched. He swallowed back the words, "It really is ugly right now." Unfortunately, there was still no movement. Qin Yu's complexion became even more dignified. He carefully lifted the pill furnace, wanting to probe it with his divine sense. An hour later, they were still in the same cabin, one person and one furnace. But at this time, Qin Yu's excited and expectant face had completely turned gloomy. The air was heavy and heavy. He tried every method he could think of, but the pill furnace didn't respond at all. It was like it really was a broken piece of goods. Qin Yu stared at it. Although he didn't want to admit it, a thought subconsciously appeared in his heart that made him grit his teeth. Perhaps he had been played by that crazy, bull-like pill furnace on the 9th level. That's right, that must be it. What did it mean by suddenly choosing me, as if it had to follow me? So it was all a scam from the start. You played me until I was overwhelmed with emotions, and then in the blink of an eye, you gave me a pill furnace of rotten quality that couldn't be any worse. Good, very good. Qin Yu gnashed his teeth again. He didn't know how many times he cursed inwardly and how many times he swore he would teach it a lesson. But none of this could change the truth. That was, tomorrow he would take this low-grade pill furnace and participate in the competition. Could this thing be used to refine pills? Qin Yu didn't have the least bit of confidence. He wanted to test it out, but looking at the furnace body that seemed as if it would explode if he used just a bit more strength. Finally, he let out a long breath and gave up on this idea. If he opened the furnace and it exploded, then he wouldn't need to participate in the competition or anything like that. I'll endure it. Perhaps when I start refining pills tomorrow, there will be a favorable turn. The annoyed Qin Yu simply didn't know what had happened that night. All of the divine senses that had broken into the 9th level, as well as the cultivators that had the qualifications to know what had happened, were trying to find out just who had taken away the legendary formidable pill furnace from the 9th level. Naturally, they couldn't find any results. The next day, when Qin Yu pushed open the door and left, his complexion was a bit complex. This was because he feared he really would return in defeat this time. He weighed the pill furnace in his hands and bitterly smiled. Then, he walked towards the competition field. Along the way, many cultivators pointed at him, sneered, or had looks of disdain. It was clear that after yesterday's events, Qin Yu and his pill furnace had become famous. Qin Yu was in a bad mood. He thought he was being watched by a group of pigs, so he lowered his head and didn't say a word. Fortunately, not long after he arrived at the competition venue, an official appeared and saved him from being stared at as if he were a circus. First of all, I would like to congratulate everyone for passing the first 2 stages of the competition and obtaining the qualifications to truly begin refining pills. Just like before, even if it is a waste of time, I will still need to read out the competition rules to everyone. Today's competition will have a time limit of 12 hours. Tomorrow, the competition will end at this time. Within the limit of 10 sets of materials, participating cultivators that successfully refine a medium-grade 4th-grade pill or above will smoothly advance to the next stage. All right, the countdown will begin soon. Everyone can choose the pill that they wish to refine and then place your order. That's right, from the moment one chose materials, the countdown had already begun. This was because, strictly speaking, the process of choosing materials was also a part of refining a pill. And what was even more important was that these materials had to be purchased out of one's own pocket. In the land of divinity and demons, fourth-grade pill materials weren't too precious, but there were simply too many of them. Today, there were 700 to 800 cultivators that had started refining pills. If each person received 10 sets of materials, that would be 70,000 to 80,000 sets. This was extraordinary. Of course, extraordinary was only relative. Compared to a powerful country, this wasn't anything at all. But who told the South China Nation officials to have a heart that advocated simplicity and frugality? Qin Yu didn't put on an act. He honestly bought the 10 sets of materials needed to refine the overwhelming pill that he was most proficient in. There was nothing he could do about it. The pill furnace in his hands might break if he used just a little more strength. He could only hope that if he was careful, gentle, and smooth, it would be able to persist. Although the South China Nation had a heart of simplicity and frugality, they were still relatively diligent when it came to the competition venue. In order to ensure fairness, everyone had their own small room. Of course, small wasn't just for show. It really was small. After placing down the pill furnace, there was only enough space to turn around. Moreover, there weren't any protective measures. Countless seniors that had participated in this competition had used painful tears and even bloody facts to warn their juniors that they had to lay down an array formation before refining pills. Otherwise, if the furnace next door exploded, they would be finished as well. So, after everyone entered their respective rooms, the first thing they did was to lay down a defensive array formation. Waves of light rose and fell, creating a spectacular sight. Qin Yu followed suit. Unfortunately, he didn't have yesterday's vigor. The array formation he laid down was clearly a level worse. After placing down the pill furnace, he shot out a law formula, and it returned to its normal size. What followed was the crack on the surface and the hole that was missing a piece. Looking at it now, it looked like an old woman that had lost her front teeth. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed weak and powerless. Qin Yu hesitated for a long time. Finally, he clenched his teeth and his finger cut through the void. A flame appeared and fell into the pill furnace. Heaven and earth's spiritual strength was stirred into it, turning it into a raging inferno. Chapter 321. Zhao Jiuqian's complexion was dignified. After the initial excitement passed, he constantly warned himself that this was the only chance he had to turn things around after making such a grave mistake. He didn't want to sink into depravity like this. He had to obtain first place in the competition. Otherwise, there was no meaning to it. However, the pill that Zhao Jiuqian chose wasn't a common fourth-grade pill, but a pill called the muscle rejuvenation pill. As its name suggested, this pill had a formidable healing effect on a cultivator's mortal body. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it could regenerate flesh and bones. Of course, the most important reason that Zhao Jiuqian chose the muscle rejuvenation pill was that this pill was relatively simple to refine and could shorten the refining time. Although the difficulty was a bit higher, it shouldn't be a problem as long as he was cautious. What he wanted was to be the first to finish refining. Black Bebe was far away in another room. At this time, waves of heat were billowing within the pill furnace. His expression was solemn, without the slightest bit of his usual arrogance. His handsome face was filled with caution. Materials were thrown into the pill furnace at a steady speed. His divine sense carefully sensed the changes within the pill furnace, and he would occasionally adjust the speed of his law formulas. His pill furnace was only a medium-grade pill furnace. If he wanted to obtain a higher ranking, he could only increase his time and the quality of the pill. After thinking about it again and again, he chose the latter. At this time, White Foam was dripping with sweat. She constantly threw materials into the pill furnace, her speed faster than the average person's. Although she seemed a bit flustered, her eyes were calm. This sort of rapid filling of materials, using the furnace fire to extract the medicinal efficacy and then fusing them all together, was a secret technique of the Great Desolate Lake. At such a young age, she was able to control such a calm and composed manner. If this matter were to be known by others, it would surely cause a wave of exclamations and envious gazes. There were also many cultivators that were using their special skills, hoping to obtain a satisfactory result on the first day of the competition. And as they were working hard, Qin Yu was in a daze. That's right, he was indeed in a daze. It wasn't because he had suffered a mental blow from failing the refinement, nor was it because the pill furnace had exploded. Rather, it was because this seemingly rotten pill furnace was actually much better than he had imagined. No, it was more accurate to say that it was much better, because the overwhelming pill met Qin Yu's cultivation needs. It was the pill that he refined the most after joining the inn. Even if he didn't refine 100 furnaces, it wouldn't be too bad. To Qin Yu, a 4th-grade pill wasn't difficult at all, much less the overwhelming pill that he had a high degree of proficiency in. On the first try, he succeeded. Furthermore, he was extremely lucky to have a mid-grade product when it came out of the furnace. After a moment of shock, he felt an unexpected joy. It seemed like he could still continue the competition. Sure enough, you're not as shabby and vulgar as you look on the surface. All of your essence is reserved. Unfortunately, Qin Yu had just changed his opinion of his pill furnace. His happiness lasted for less than 3 seconds before it was completely extinguished by a bucket of cold water. That was because the pill that had just come out of the furnace was still warm. Without waiting for him to put it away, it flew back into the pill furnace with a whoosh. And then, there was no then. Qin Yu swore that he had already searched every inch of the pill furnace with his divine sense. He was just short of tearing it apart, but the overwhelming pills that he had just refined had disappeared without a trace. If it weren't for the faint medicinal fragrance still lingering in the air, he would have thought it was just an illusion. Then, there was only one possibility left. The pills had been eaten. Qin Yu's eyes widened. He knew just how absurd his thoughts were, but besides that, there was no other explanation. A pill furnace that could eat pills. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have never believed it. After a long daze, Qin Yu clenched his teeth and took out the materials for the second, overwhelming pill. Disregarding how this pill furnace could eat pills, the fact that it could refine pills was an unexpected harvest. Qin Yu didn't believe that if he was prepared, the pill he refined would be swallowed back. When he began refining a second time, the young proud children of heaven from a Southshine nation had nearly completed their first refinement. This didn't mean that Qin Yu's alchemy skills were above these young proud children of heaven, but that the pill furnace in his hand that could eat pills was indeed a bit different. Zhao Jiutian was one of these proud children of heaven. With a flick of a finger, there was a loud bang from within the pill furnace. The mouth of the furnace immediately opened, and a rich medicinal fragrance filled the air. 3 round pills that shined with a blue light burst out. Zhao Jiutian's eyes brightened. He took out a jade bottle he had already prepared and placed the 3 muscle growth pills within. With a flick of his sleeves, he opened the door and walked out. Cleansing temples, Zhao Jiutian has completed the refinement. In the quiet wooden house, there was only his figure. His voice constantly echoed in the air. Zhao Jiutian's eyes lit up with excitement, and he clenched his fists. He was first. The Southshine Nation officials reacted extremely quickly. A cultivator immediately arrived and inspected the muscle growth pills in front of everyone. Then, he nodded and announced that they had passed. At this time, another voice sounded out in the distance. Great Desolate Lakes, White Feng Feng has completed the refinement. Zhao Jiutian's smile froze, and a gloomy light flashed in his eyes. He never thought that this little girl would have such skills. Luckily, she was still a step slower than him. Once he reached the 2nd level of alchemy, that was when his foundation would truly be tested. At that time, he would be able to leave her far behind. The marrow cleansing pill that White Fong Fong refined was a pill that improved the physique and strengthened the mortal body. After being inspected, it also met the requirements. Zhao, Jiuqian, and White Fong Fong completed the refinement one after another. It was like a chain reaction had started. Wooden houses open one after another. Westbrook Zhang Qingzong has completed the refinement. South Marsh Yuan Fongding has completed the refinement. Southridge City's Feng Do has completed the refinement. One after another, young cultivators with outstanding strength pushed open the doors and loudly shouted out their names. There was a bit of chaos, but the South China Nation officials were already prepared for this. They easily dealt with the chaos and recorded the order in which everyone shouted out their names. At the same time, there were special wide-angle cameras that recorded the entire process. Afterwards, they compared the results to avoid any mistakes. Of course, just shouting out one's name wasn't useful. They still needed to be appraised to confirm that the pill met the requirements. Only then would the results be valid. Great Desolate Lake's Black Bebe has completed the refinement. At this time, at least dozens of people had completed their refinement. Black Bebe's ranking wasn't near the front, but his complexion remained calm. Deep in his tired eyes, a strong self-confidence surged. The ranking didn't just depend on time. As the South China Nation officials saw Black Bebe hand over the pill, they revealed a look of shock. They deeply looked at him and nodded, thinking that he was truly worthy of being someone from the Great Desolate Lake. This sort of alchemy skill couldn't be underestimated. Time slowly passed. An hour, 2 hours more, and more people successfully refined their pills. Unfortunately, Qin Yu wasn't one of them. In a small and narrow wooden house, Qin Yu's complexion was dark and gloomy. He clenched his fists. If it weren't for the fact that he would have to rely on it for the following competition, he feared he wouldn't have been able to restrain himself. He would have punched this bastard pill furnace to smithereens. This was the 9th time. Qin Yu's alchemy had never been as smooth as it was today. Every time he refined a pill, he would succeed. But what left him sad and indignant was that he couldn't obtain a single pill he refined. That's right, they had all been eaten up by the pill furnace. There wasn't even a single dregs left over. Qin Yu swore that he had already erupted with all the caution he could muster. But no matter how he guarded himself, he couldn't prevent the result of his pills being eaten up. In particular, this damned pill furnace. After he successfully refined the pills, it didn't even open the mouth of the furnace. Then, all the pills vanished without a trace. If it weren't for his mind being strong enough, Qin Yu feared he would have long since gone insane. He took a deep breath. Although he didn't want to admit it, he knew that in today's contest with the pill furnace, he had been thoroughly defeated. According to this fellow's expression, even if Qin Yu were to refine another 100 pills, it would still eat them all up in a single breath. And of the 10 sets of overwhelming pill materials that the South China Nation officials had given him, there was only one left. You bastard, we'll have plenty of time in the future. Don't give me another chance. Otherwise, I'll let you know what it means to regret your past actions. Qin Yu's heart was filled with ruthlessness. He squeezed out a smile and took out 5 light blue overwhelming pills. These were the private goods he had left behind when he refined them in the past. After being purified by the little blue lamp, there was no need to mention their quality. As he placed them in his palm, he could smell their intoxicating pill fragrance. Let's make a deal. Leave behind the last furnace of pills for me, and as repayment, these 5 top-grade pills are all yours. The pill furnace was quiet, like a piece of rotten wood without the slightest response. If it weren't for the fact that he had personally experienced a battle of wits and courage with it in the end, Qin Yu might have been tricked by it. But now he knew that this fellow was playing dumb. Or, to be more precise, it was raising the price. Qin Yu clenched his teeth and brightly smiled. It doesn't matter if 5 isn't enough. I'll give you another 3. These are top-grade pills. The quality is much higher than medium-grade pills. The pill furnace remained silent. Qin Yu laughed. This is a fixed price. Leave behind the last furnace of pills for me, and these 10 top-grade pills will all be yours. Quietly, the mouth of the pill furnace opened on its own. It was pitch black inside like a mocking mouth. As the 10 pills were sent in, Chin, you could clearly hear the sounds of chewing coming from within the alchemy furnace. This bastard, he was eating to his heart's content. I'll endure this. After a long time, the pill furnace finally finished eating. The extinguished flames beneath it suddenly ignited on their own. Then heaven and earth's spiritual strength was drawn in, nimbly changing the flames to a suitable state for refining pills. The mouth of the furnace reluctantly opened. Although it didn't make any sound, Chin, you could clearly feel a trace of impatience from its expression. The general meaning was, I've already opened my mouth, so why don't you hurry up and refine the pills? What are you dawdling about for? I'll endure this. Chin, you laughed and took out the last set of overwhelming pill materials. Then, the entire refining process went smoothly. After the furnace fire was extinguished, although he hadn't taken out the pills yet, the medicinal fragrance indicated that the refinement had been successful. Chin, you let out a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to take out the pills, his complexion suddenly turned green. This was because he could clearly hear that familiar chewing sound from within the pill furnace. Chapter 322. Shut up. Chin, you shouted out loud. He grabbed the pill furnace with all his strength, but because he used so much strength, his fingers emitted dull, cracking sounds. That broken pill furnace didn't seem to have any intention of opening its mouth. Finally, the sound of chewing stopped. Chin, you paled. He had actually been played by a pill furnace so thoroughly. Killing intent began to rise in his eyes. As he was considering whether he should cut into 8 pieces or 10, the mouth of the furnace suddenly opened and an overwhelming pill flew out. Chin, you looked at the mouth of the furnace that seemed to be mocking him, and his lips twitched. This bastard, but he really didn't have the time to be angry with it, because the day was about to pass. He quickly took out a jade bottle and placed the overwhelming pill inside. Then, he pushed open the door and rushed out. And the refinement is complete. In his excitement, he nearly shouted out his name. Luckily, his reaction was a step faster, and he managed to muddle through it. In the empty wooden house, this voice was abrupt. The group of South China Nation officials that were about to leave were so frightened that they shivered. One of them clearly had high status. He frowned and looked at the cultivator beside him. That person hurriedly said, Lord Hulun, there is still a minute until the deadline. Hulun he furrowed his eyebrows. He was wondering where this strange fellow had come from. He had actually turned in his exam paper late and was looking for some stimulation. But the rules were the rules. He could only stop and impatiently wave his hand. Someone immediately rushed out and arrived in front of Chinyu. Give me the pill. After dragging things out to this point, it was necessary that they were weak. In addition, they had provoked the displeasure of their superiors, so the official's attitude naturally wasn't any better. Chinyu had an awkward expression. He cursed that damned pill furnace 10,000 times in his heart, and then quickly handed over the jade bottle. As he opened it, the official's face darkened. He saw that the jade bottle was empty, and there was only a single pill inside. It was a bit dim, and there was a faint stream of light that barely proved that it was a medium-grade pill. You only managed to form 1 pill. Chinyu coughed and nodded. Luckily, the competition didn't have any restrictions on this. 1 pill was enough to pass. The official sucked in a deep breath. What about the remaining materials? Give them to me? At this time, he didn't want to waste any more words on this person. Chinyu was silent. The official's breath caught in his throat, and his eyes widened. Don't tell me you've used up all of the 10 materials? Even with Chinyu's willpower, he still couldn't help but feel a bit ashamed. He could only nod innocently, as if asking if there was a problem. This appearance almost caused the official to spit out a mouthful of blood. It was a total of 10 batches of ingredients. Even an experienced alchemist would not be able to open 10 batches of ingredients in a day, including the rest and preparation time. Thus, when the South China Nation officials calculated the final rankings, the amount of materials remaining was also an extremely important factor. Of course, the government wouldn't admit that they were doing this to earn money. This was because the materials collected would be used as proof of the competition and would be kept by the organizers. The reason he had sold 10 sets of materials was so that he could earn more spirit stones through the recycling process. But what was he looking at now? 10 sets of ingredients to concoct a 4th-grade pill. Furthermore, it was the most difficult pill to reach the quality of a middle-grade pill. This official considered himself to be experienced and knowledgeable, but he had never seen someone with such poor alchemy skills. He really couldn't figure out just how he had arrived at this step. The official flicked his sleeves and left, not even bothering to say a single word to Chinyu. At the same time, he had already sentenced Chinyu to death in his heart. This brat absolutely had to be ranked first from the bottom. It was unknown what this person said when he left, but the group of South Shine Nation officials all had strange looks in their eyes. Their impatience lessened by a great deal, making one feel as if they were showing concern for the mentally handicapped. Hulu and he also couldn't help but look at this brat. He suddenly discovered that he looked a bit familiar, but as he thought about where he had seen him before, a look of loathing appeared in his eyes. He coldly snorted and left. Playing to the gallery, the South Shine Nation cultivator that received Chinyu's pills sneered inwardly. Even the superior official couldn't stand it any longer. "You brat, you won't run away from first place." Thus, the next day, Chinyu turned on his handphone and searched through the long list published by the official app. In the last dark corner, he found his name. In Ning Qin, number 9527 points, 0, first from the bottom. Chinyu's lips twitched. He swore that the fellow who compiled this list definitely had some sort of grudge with him. Otherwise, why would he ridicule him in public? And there was even an emphasis on the bottom of the bracket. "Fall your sister." Chinyu clenched his teeth and chose to remain anonymous. After verifying his identity, the last place on the list was left with the number 9627. But at this time, it seemed that many people had made the same choice as Chinyu. At the end of the list, all that was left was the number 9627. Everyone was a person that cared about face. Chinyu coughed. He wasn't afraid of losing face. He just didn't want to ruin the good image everyone had of Ningqin. And that was it. Looking up, there were over 4,000 cultivators that had passed the examination. The list was extremely long. What attracted the most attention were the 30 people at the top of the list. This was because their names were filled with dazzling colors, and the higher they were ranked, the more dazzling their names were. The first ranked was actually Zhao Jiutian. Black Bebe was second. Third was White Foam Foam. Following closely behind them was a group of powerful young proud children of heaven from all over. Chinyu frowned. What were the points behind them used for? He took out the jade slip that the inn had prepared for him regarding the competition. He probed it with his divine sense, and a moment later a look of annoyance crossed his face. This damned pill furnace. The competition organized by the South Shine Nation officials was divided into 4 steps. From the second step onwards, the participants would be ranked according to their performance. The top 30 cultivators could obtain points as rewards. For instance, first place Zhao Jiutian obtained 10 points. Second place Black Bebe obtained 8 points. White Foam Foam obtained 6 points. A point could be exchanged with the South Shine Nation officials for 10,000 spirit stones. Of course, almost no one would do this, because there were far greater uses for accumulating points. For instance, exchanging for a special flame that could enhance the quality of a pill. For instance, exchanging for a missing material to refine a pill. In fact, one could even exchange for more time to refine a pill. Was this fair to the other participating cultivators? Of course it wasn't. But if someone obtained points, they had to rely on their own strength to obtain them. The points were there. If you couldn't obtain them, then don't blame others for using cheats. Chinyu sneered inwardly. In the end, alchemy depended on one's own strength. Outside help was nothing but a small trick. Humph humph. If you really want to compare cheats, do you think my little blue lamp is any weaker than yours? He would never, ever admit that he was feeling sour in his heart. No. The competition continued. The official announced the rules of the third stage. Now, everyone has 3 days. In these 3 days, you will need to refine 10 different types of 4th-grade pills. Every time you refine a fourth-grade pill, after it passes the inspection, you'll be able to obtain 1 to 3 points from the competition's mobile app. These points can be stacked with the points you obtained in the second stage and can be used to exchange for the alchemy materials needed for the fourth stage in the medicine storeroom. He paused for a moment and then revealed a warm smile. I must solemnly remind everyone that the materials in the medicine storeroom are strictly limited. Once all of them are exchanged, they will immediately be removed from the shelves. So, in order for everyone to obtain enough materials to refine pills in the fourth stage, please do your best. Chin admired the person who designed these competition rules to the extreme. The reward points that were given out could actually be used like this. It was truly simple and economical to the extreme. But these rules forced everyone to a point where they couldn't retreat. They didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. For example, in the fourth stage, Chin was preparing to refine a fifth-grade sky dust pill. In the third stage, he would have to strive to obtain the materials needed for the sky dust pill. Otherwise, once all of them were exchanged, even if he obtained 99% of the materials, because of the final flaw, all of his efforts would be in vain. He would undoubtedly lose the fourth stage. It was the same cabin from yesterday and the same smell as yesterday. However, before entering, there was a small twist. Cleansing Temple's Zhao Zhoutian arrived surrounded by several people. He had a proud expression, and his every movement was filled with confidence. Unfortunately, the group from the Great Desolate Lake also arrived at this time. The two sides met. They were old rivals to begin with, and in addition to the matter of the mystic beast fodder medicine, they were like fire and water. There was no need for words. Their gazes were filled with killing intent. If looks could really kill, then rivers of blood would have flowed from both sides by now. Zhao Zhuqian's lips curled up in a smile, carrying with him the pride of a victor. Black Bei, Miss White, thank you for letting us win yesterday's competition. Behind him, a group of cleansing temple cultivators laughed, their eyes full of ridicule. So what if it was the Great Desolate Lake? They were still firmly suppressed by our senior apprentice, Brother Zhoutian. White Feng Feng was expressionless. She lightly glanced at him. In front of others, this girl could always put on an attitude as proud as a phoenix, noble and inviolable. But her eyes revealed a cold indifference, and indifference could often be understood as disregard. Zhao Zhoutian's smile didn't change. Miss White doesn't seem to care. Then, how about you and I make a bet on the results of the competition? Without giving the people from the Great Desolate Lake a chance to refuse, he continued to say, if you allow me to win, and I luckily obtain first place, then I will ask Miss White to be a guest at my cleansing temple for half a year and give Zhoutian the qualifications to pursue her. How about it? Insolence. My family's miss is not someone you have the qualifications to taint. Surname Zhao, our business isn't over yet. Stop dreaming. The Great Desolate Lake cultivators all shouted out. Black Bei coldly sneered. The surroundings immediately quieted down. Zhao Zhoutian, you don't have the qualifications to have any thoughts about my cousin. Zhao Zhoutian's eyes darkened and his voice became sharp. Ha! If Miss White doesn't dare to agree, then just pretend I didn't say anything. White Feng Feng suddenly said, and what if you don't obtain first place? Zhao Zhuqian decisively said, I am willing to accept punishment for the mystic beast fodder medicine and allow Miss White to deal with me, as you please. Black Bei anxiously said, Feng Feng, don't fall for his provocation. White Feng Feng lifted a hand, interrupting him. Fine, I'll make a bet with you. Zhao Zhuqian laughed. Miss White is straightforward. Then I ask all the fellow Taoists here today to bear witness. He revealed a confident smile. Perhaps Miss White can prepare to move into my cleansing temple's personal belongings. I guarantee that Miss White will receive the warmest welcome. White Feng Feng revealed a look of pity. Perhaps you should worry more about yourself. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.